Punching Up, a Nintendo podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Punching Up, your bi-weekly Nintendo podcast from Last Stand Media. I'm your host, Dustin. Here with me, let's kick off with BBL Genie, our boy Gene Park. What's up, dude?
Doing good. I'm glad you mentioned BBL Drizzy. I actually, after this show, I'm actually going to be interviewing King Wallonius, the original writer of BBL Drizzy himself.
Now, I'm confused. Was it like an AI thing that he wrote and then put it in?
It is. It is indeed a Midjourney song.
Wow, that's
it is
crazy.
A song prompted by Midjourney. He wrote the lyrics, so
Right.
he wrote the lyrics thicker than a Snicker, and best BBL in history. And then he would write those lyrics, and he would prompt the AI to basically write or create music around it. Right.
Right.
And the one that hit was the one that made it sound drenched in 1970s soul, and later produced by one Metro Boomin as a bounty on Drake's head.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone wanted the $10,000, which is kind of bullshit. Like, I feel there was like no time limit, so it's like, when is somebody gonna win the $10,000 by Metro, or are we just gonna be, dissing on Drake ad infinitum
forever
for the rest of the time?
The $10,000 is the friends we made along the way, maybe.
Yeah.
But it is sad, Gene, because I talked about rap beef on Constellation this past week, and a lot of people were sad that you weren't there. And I was thinking about it, I was like, man, that would have been Gene. I think you are the only other person in this company. Ben follows to some degree, but we're the only ones that were invested in this beef.
I'm a little disappointed that Colin wasn't following along, because I mean, I'm not surprised Colin wasn't following along, but I feel like his ears would prick up, I guess, once he hears that the number one song in the country is about how a man is a pedophile.
Right.
It's the number one country, the song in the country across the board, and number one on Billboard, number one on the streaming charts, number one on everything.
Yeah.
And number one on the sales charts. So I would think Colin would be like, well, I don't like pedophiles.
Yeah.
I mean, who does? So
no. Yeah.
And then, so yeah, you would think Colin would be at least mildly interested in the backstory behind why the number one song in the country is about calling a very, very famous man a pedophile.
Dude, I've been stepping away from the Reddit beef, like the Kendrick Lamar subreddit, because I don't know if you've seen this, there's a new figure involved, which is being known as the Riddler.
Yeah.
He's the guy on Twitter that's posting the receipts of the stolen, well, he claims not stolen items. There's a reporter
Prince
in a wheelchair involved. The rabbit hole is it's going deep.
Did you see the new rumor about Drake and dogs?
Yeah,
I'm afraid to even like mention what it's about, so we don't get monetized. But yeah, Drake and dogs, right?
He's got.
I'm sorry, Michael,
what is this song for? All the dogs or something?
For all the dogs, yeah, that's his album.
All the dogs, yeah. Well, new meaning.
Well, and then his video first person shooter, which is the song that started this whole thing, because J. Cole was the one claiming they were the big three.
The big three, right?
There's a whole section in the video where he says, I look at my phone, I see 30 teens, Christine, Justine, Claudine, and then like, and so it's already gross, like the lyric, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all the girls that he's naming, Christine, Claudine, whatever, are dogs on the video.
Oh,
yeah.
It's not aging well, man.
No,
not aging well.
Not aging.
But yeah,
well
there were clips of academics listening to dog sounds. It was awful. I hate it. I hated hearing it. Do not listen to it, Micah. It's terrible. I do not. I'm wondering if he saw it, because that is like a horrifying sight.
This rabbit hole.
Yeah, King Radic. Figure that out, King Radic.
Yeah, Radic, get on it. We need you. Moving over with absolutely no possible transition in history, Mama Micah. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
And, well, if you're watching on video, you saw me try to take a sip of my coffee without opening the lid. So I'm doing very well today. I couldn't fall asleep last night. Like I was on track. I was going to go to bed at a decent time. We're waking up to record the show. I didn't fall asleep probably till like 4 a.m. I don't know what happened. I just could not sleep. Sometimes that happens where I'm just like, oh, I'm really tired, and my body's just like, psych. So yeah, I'm here. I'm hoping the coffee's going to work its magic. But no, I'm excited. We got some good stuff to talk about this episode.
Yeah, finally. We've got some different things to talk about here in the world of Nintendo. But I'm glad you guys are doing well this week. Man, yesterday I kept thinking it was Tuesday for some reason. And then today I've just, been getting stuff ready. I haven't even thought about what day it is other than I knew I was recording this. So it's been and it's about, if this Sony event, I assume it happens next week. That's going to throw our world into chaos, but that's okay. We need stuff to talk about in the world of video games that isn't just people getting laid off. Not that, that's important. It's unfortunate news to talk about, but exciting things are nice too. But on that note, this is Punching Up. As I said, your bi-weekly Nintendo podcast from Last Stand. Thanks everybody for being here, hanging out with us. If you like the show, you can check us out on patreon.com/laststandmedia. And there you can get early access to this show along with all of our other shows. But a very important feature is you're able to write in. So basically usually on Mondays, I go in, I make a post, and that's at the $2 level or above. You can write in. I like to include many write-ins for this show. So you can write in really about whatever you want. And James M., well, this is topical. We've seen more off topic than this, but I like this. James M. says, Punches. Last show I wrote in about your opinions of Hades. My question wasn't directly answered and actually led to at least a 10-minute conversation about giant video game anime titties. I wanted to comment that I could not be more satisfied with this answer to my question, and I hope it brings some joy to know that I was giggling the whole time. Gene, never change. Take care, James M. And I read this from James, and I thought, I don't remember this. I don't remember a question about Hades, so I guess this is about right. That
I guess we just did we just black out and just start talking about tits?
Yeah, I remember when it happened, and we sort of started to veer off topic, and then in my head I was like, oh, I guess we didn't answer the question, but we were having a conversation. I couldn't. You can't just be like, oh, guys, it was going somewhere.
What was the question about? Was it just about what we think about Hades?
It was something about the quality of Hades. Like, are there other games you can think of as high quality or something like that? It was a good question. And then I don't know what the hell happened. But once that train left the station, there was no getting her back.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Video games, maybe not at an all-time horny. But, we're kind of coming down from Stellar Blade at this point, which was kind of amping it up. It's only, we're going to talk about a Nintendo Direct coming pretty soon. I feel like Nintendo always sprinkles in something that it's definitely not intended to be horny, but they know that's they're going to take it that way. Something like that.
The Splatoon characters too.
Oh. Drake would like that. The Squid Kids.
Yeah, he would. Totally.
He'd be into that. But let's go ahead and get started here. I have a little...
What a freak.
We talked about Squid Kids at some point on Sacred Symbols in relation to people that like kids. I don't remember what the joke was, but
no, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, So moving on to better things, I wanted to ask you guys, just kind of get us started here. We're just a few weeks away from the release of Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake on Nintendo Switch. And we talked about it obviously when it got announced. There's been previews since then, but I didn't really include those in the show just because it just feels like you're regurgitating other people's opinions on something that's not even released at this point. So I didn't want to talk about those, but I feel like it's a good time to check in with you guys, ask if you've seen anything, and whether you're excited or not. So, Micah, I know you've been interested in this game because it is a Mario RPG. In fact, it's actually called Paper Mario RPG in Japan, coming out in a few weeks. Are you excited? And one last question. Big debate. This game is in 30 FPS. The original is in 60. Do you feel like it's a big deal?
Oh, so am I excited? Absolutely. This is a game that I have wanted to play for a very long time. And I got my pre-order in very early. Actually, weeks and weeks ago when I went to pre-order it on Amazon, they were oversold. So it wasn't even available. I ended up getting my pre-order through Target. So unfortunately, I probably won't get it on release day, but hopefully it'll arrive pretty speedily. But I'm very excited. I have been actively avoiding information about the game because it's a very unspoiled experience for me. And I don't mean that I think the story is worth spoiling, but just this game, aside from the official Nintendo announcements and things, I've been trying to not read anything about it or about the original even, because I want to be just surprised. I knew a lot about Super Mario RPG because I had previously watched the Game Grumps playthrough of it. Because in my head, I was like, I'm never going to play this game. It's, not easy to play it, right? And so I knew a lot about what would happen in that game already. It didn't ruin it because it's a very fun and cute experience. But I want to go into this one super fresh. Does it matter to me that it's running at 30 FPS? Not really. I don't know. The type of game that it is, I mean, I'll have to wait and see. But the type of game that it is and the art style, I don't think it's going to matter too much. I also don't see very well, which is Colin and I always joke about. He'll be like, oh, look at this. And look at the screen tearing. And I'm like, I can't see that far. I'm sitting all the way back here on the couch. I can't see that far. It looks great. So we'll see if it matters. But if I do notice it, that means it's bad because I can't see for shit.
Yeah. Well, you're the blessed position to be in. I always tell people that there's some people I can't tell the difference between 30 and 60. I'm not saying it's to that degree for you, but when people say that, I'm like, good, because you're not going to be a bitch like me who constantly is like, oh, this is 30, this is 60. Now, Gene, you're the based one over here that can tell the difference, but simply don't care and often play games at 30 FPS on Switch anyway, which I'm envious of just because I can't turn that off in my brain. But Gene, I know you probably, I assume you've played Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, so you have some history with this game. How are you feeling about this remake?
Good. I'm well. The thing is, I'm not that excited for it because I feel like the one time I played Paper Mario: A Thousand Year Door was enough. It's kind of like Silent Hill 2, actually. I don't know why there's this clamoring for a Silent Hill 2 remake. At least personally for me, if you really enjoyed replaying it, that's great. But for me, it's I mean, both games came out around the same time too. I always associate both together for some reason. I feel like I probably played both of them at the same time. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel like I need to revisit A Thousand Year Door. Although I do agree that it is kind of the best one, the most memorable one. I do have a soft spot for Super Paper Mario for the Wii itself. But Thousand Year Door is definitely the most memorable one. It is the best story. It is the best one after Super Mario RPG, and arguably better too. In some ways. So. In many ways, because the characters are just a lot richer in Thousand Year Door. Actually, the writing is just a little bit more sophisticated. Because Super Mario RPG, the writing was already pretty good, right, Micah?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was genuinely surprised at how many times I laughed, while playing it. Not just a little chuckle, the game actually got me laughing. I was not expecting that from this what's a really a bite-sized RPG. I was not expecting it to also have this story that was very comical and had very sweet moments as well. That completely took me by surprise.
Yeah. Mario RPG was the first time Bowser had a personality and everything. So they really went from 0 to 9 in Mario RPG. So I think Thousand Year Door is basically where they go to a 10 for all the characters. So yeah, it's I'm excited. I'm not gonna be reviewing it. You know, I'm there's not a lot of games to review for Nintendo. You know, for the rest of the year, anyways. So I think I'm chill. And I don't I also don't feel like reviewing another remake. You know, because what else is there to say? Again, I barely have anything to say right now. You know, it's a great game. I'm glad it's coming out again. You know, but what else is there to say?
Yeah, my my history with this game is that I played the original Paper Mario on Nintendo 64 and absolutely loved it. Fell in love with it. It's an amazing game. I've never gone back to it, so that was decades ago at this point that I played Paper Mario. And I always
never played that one too. So there's that.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome, but kind of, I don't want to say forgotten about, but in comparison, Thousand Year Door, that's the one I've always heard about. People say this is the best one. This is amazing. And I actually bought it on GameCube last year for like $100. And I started playing it. And then when I was like, I don't know if I put it down for a little bit, then they announced this remake. It's like, well, I don't want to play it back to back. Because it seems pretty straightforward in terms of its like mechanical remake. It's not reinventing anything. It's just kind of giving it a new coat of paint. It's like, well, I guess I'm just going to wait for the remake. But here's what I will say. As far as the original Paper Mario and what I've played of the Thousand Year Door, Micah, if you liked the characterization of these, you know, Mario and Bowser and Peach, they amp it up so much in these games where it is legitimately way funny and so cute. And it's really, at least it feels like to me with Peach and Bowser, these are almost separate alternate characterizations of them for this world. And so that's one of the most enjoyable aspects of it. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited. As far as the 30 FPS aspect, it is odd on paper that you say, hey, we have a GameCube game that ran at 60 FPS. We're making it decades later on our new, well, not new, but our current console. And it will look a lot better, but we're cutting the performance in half. It's like, really? That's kind of, anytime you have any kind of remake or remaster, you don't want any check mark that's a downgrade in any way, I would say. Now, I've also been avoiding the previews, so I would love to see like the direct comparison. Maybe they'll be able to justify it to some degree, but it does feel like a little weird that they made that creative decision in development that they were going to target 30 instead of 60.
It's probably not a creative decision. There's something just fucked up along the way, probably, and they just couldn't figure it out.
They just couldn't. Yeah, that could be true.
Because like Nintendo, out of all the three platform holders, Nintendo has actually been the most serious about hitting 60 frames per second for their games throughout history. It's always been really, really important for you know, Super Mario Sunshine was, well, Mario Sunshine was 30 frames. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But you know, Mario Galaxy was 60 frames.
Galaxy, Odyssey, 60 frames.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I feel like if they could have tried to make it 60, they would have. But the Switch is a 12-year-old system, basically. You know, 10 years old. So I don't know.
Yeah. So that's coming up soon, but I have a write-in that's kind of related from Joshua D, who says, "Hey, Fisters of the Brick." Wow, that's a new one. We don't get many new ones of that variation anymore. He says, "So I started playing Paper Mario for Nintendo 64 on the Switch Online service. I never played either Paper Mario or Thousand Year Door, and I'd feel like a poser just jumping straight into the Thousand Year Door. Is this Colin's alt account? Just wondering if you guys feel the same way when jumping into a new series. Love all the pods and Last Stand. Keep it up. And Gene, never stop being a Chad." So here's the thing, Josh, about Paper Mario. To my understanding, these stories do not relate or connect at all. Really, they are the same versions of Mario and Peach and Luigi and stuff like that, but you're not going to be missing. You'll be missing, I guess, historical context of the two games if that's something that's very important to you. But you don't have to. But since you're already playing, the original Paper Mario on Nintendo 64 is fantastic. So no problem there. I want to ask what you guys know, because it's famously known in our company about how Colin feels about this jumping in at different points of the series. Micah, recently you've been playing Xenoblade, and you started, well, technically it's like, oh, you should have went back to Xenogears on the PlayStation 1. Or even before that. I don't know exactly when the Xeno legacy.
That's where it starts.
That's where it starts. Okay. Yeah. So arguably somebody could argue that, but I would say you've been good about starting with Xenoblade. How do you feel about this topic? Does it just depend on the game?
To me, it does. For example, something like the Yakuza series, I got into that with Zero. That's what got my attention. I said, oh, well, this is a perfect place to jump in. It's a prequel. And then I'll kind of go from there. And then they kept remaking the other games. And I was like, well, great, this is excellent. But I did jump around a bit. Like I played Zero, Kiwami 1, 2, and then I played 6 because that was out and I just had to play it, right? So I still need to play 3, 4, 5. But I did, like in that series, I was like, yeah, I want to get the background as much as I can. The thing about 6 was I just didn't want it spoiled, because it's like, okay, this is supposed to be because we're like the end of the saga here. I'm not going to have this spoiled on me. I'm just going to play it. And with Xenoblade, I'm looking at this of like, there are 4 key games that I want to play, Xenoblade 1, 2, 3, and then X on the Wii U. So it's like, well, yeah, I'll go in order for those. And what I always do, like when approaching a new series, is like going online and seeing like, oh, should I start with the first one? Is it worth doing something like, Bravely Default and Bravely Second, for example? I heard so many like positives about Bravely Default, but also people saying the flaws in the game, if you want to start with Bravely Second, go ahead. I saw that enough times that I said, all right, then that's kind of what I would do. Because at a certain point, if these stories are, connected, but you're not really missing out on very much, I'll feel more comfortable just moving on to something later on in the series. Or if people say that the game has like fundamental improvements. Another example, I haven't played it yet, but I do have Dragon Quest Builders 2, and people just online really recommend the first game, but they said the second one is the better experience. And you can definitely play it without feeling lost, and that without feeling like you really missed anything in the first one. And it's a long game. So I was like, all right, I'll start with that one and we'll go from there. So no, I don't feel like you're a poser if you like start at a certain place in a series. I'm planning to. I have Dragon Quest 8 for 3DS. I've had it for a while. I just never played it. And I'm going to play that. And it's going to be my first Dragon Quest game. Is that a good idea? Maybe not, but it's the one I currently own and have access to. Yeah. Oh, excellent. So I don't know. I'm just about getting into play games where you feel comfortable, so long as it makes sense. I think you should Google things to see like, oh, are you going to be super confused about the story or whatever? But like my first Tales game was Tales of Hearts R, because I bought it for like $1.99 on Vita during a PlayStation summer sale, several years ago. So if a game looks interesting to you, I think it's worth jumping in simply because that might get you to go back and play more of them versus saying, oh, well, I can't even start this because there's 4 of these. I don't know. So long as you can kind of Google spoiler-free, tips from other players, I feel like it's better to just get into the game where you want to so that you don't miss out on the series altogether.
Yeah. And one thing, too, I think in addition to that, I would never trust what a developer says about whether or not you can start it on its own. Because I think, wasn't there something like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? They're like, oh, you could start here. Like, no, you fucking can't. You cannot do that.
That's what they're saying about. That's what Sega. That's what Sega was saying about Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. They're like, oh, you can start here. I was like, wait, but the main character of the last 9 games has cancer now. You can't just start here, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I wouldn't even definitely would say like, yeah, you should play 7, like, because don't you want to know like who the new character is too? Like, I don't know. It's just like, well, I don't know. That seems a little crazy to jump in there. Like, I'm not saying you need to play 0 through 6 to get into Yakuza these days, but you should probably start with like the newest one of the new games versus, I mean, like the first one of the new games. If you're going to get into like this new trilogy, let's say that they're working on, there's not 10 of these to get through. You're looking at 2 games basically.
Right.
But yeah, these companies always lie, so you can just buy the game now, and it worked. I mean, a lot of people, like more people, buy Infinite Wealth than ever. So, you know.
Yeah, Gene, what do you think about this? As far as like, have you jumped into a series in the middle?
Yeah, I'm both sides of this because I also appreciate Colin's tactic in trying to kind of see the evolution of a game series. I think certain game series are it's very arbitrary the way I would apply that. You know, like for example, Octopath Traveler and Dragon Quest Builders. Everyone keeps saying that Octopath Traveler 2 and Dragon Quest Builders 2 are not related, so that's totally fine. But also just have so many more quality of life improvements and are just better overall. But I'm stubborn, and I don't want to finish I don't want to start Octopath 2 until I finish 1, and I'm already like maybe 60-70% done with 1, and I just don't want to continue on to 2 until I feel like I finish part 1. Same with Dragon Quest Builders, which I also fell off on too, which I was really enjoying, and then I hit some of those stretches where like it got a little slow, where I'm just like collecting material and stuff like that, and then Stellar Blade came out, and then you know, I'm playing all these other games right now that we'll talk about soon. So you know, that's just where I'm at. But with Mario, obviously you can just jump into whatever. So I mean, you're not a poser for jumping in whatever. It's fine.
I meant to say a second ago, Yakuza 6, the full title, Yakuza 6, The Song of Life. Mm-hmm. That name goes hard. Like that name, that's a name that's like, man, I gotta play that. I don't know.
Yeah,
something about it.
That's super cool. Serious business. It was great. I fucking love Yakuza 6.
I was thinking when the baby is born, like, is this my time for Yakuza? Where, you know, I'll have like, maybe it's on Steam Deck. I've got random 30-minute periods where I can.
Right. You haven't touched the series at all, right?
I have played some of 0, and I've played some of 7. So, but never finished either one.
Those are the 2 starting points. So
yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that I'm dumb, and when 7 came out, I was like, oh, it's a new game for PS5. I should try it, even though I never finished 0, and then didn't. I mean, it was when PS5 came out, so it was like new stuff all the time. But
oh yeah, totally.
I feel like I would love those games. And what I played of 0 was awesome. It got a little slow in the main story, but I think I would need to just go and do all the random weird shit, and then I'll get really invested.
Yeah, for sure. It does. 0, honestly, I think people forget that there's a huge chunk in the middle that isn't that good, actually, and it doesn't end very strongly either. It just starts out really good, and the main characters are really, really well done. But it's not the best story in the series. Honestly, the best story in the series is 7 still, to me, I think, which is surprising. 6 is really good though too. And that has beat Takeshi, the legend. So.
Oh, nice. Okay, let's get into our news. So Nintendo this past week revealed their fiscal report, and lots of numbers here, guys. Lots of numbers, little interesting tidbits. I was telling you guys before the show, I didn't know how to organize this, so I kind of just have this in chunks of things to talk about. First of all, there were 15.7 million Switches sold in the fiscal year 2024. So where's that put us? The Switch is now at 141.32 million units. And in addition to that, Nintendo's expecting to sell somehow 13.5 million more this fiscal year. So in the chart I put on our show notes here, you can see the list of the best-selling consoles of all time. Nintendo Switch sitting at number 3, of course, with that 141 million units. And then competing with itself at number 2, Nintendo DS at 154 million. And then number 1 at 155, PlayStation 2. Now, if Nintendo does indeed sell this 13.5 million units, it's going to be right around where the DS is, surpassing it actually a little bit. So then it's just got that little stretch to go to hit PlayStation 2. So, Micah, let's go to you on this. Nintendo Switch is an anomaly in that it continues to sell units, not as crazy, but this late in the generation, which has been a long generation for Nintendo, is continuing to sell units, selling 15.7 million this past fiscal year, and plans to somehow sell 13 million more. Do you see them getting to that level, getting to PlayStation 2? And what do you think about these protracted sales so far?
I am just still so surprised that the Switch still finds new homes, essentially. But the proof of it is when I see in the like gaming forums, for example, people saying, "Oh, I just got a Nintendo Switch." And like, for example, I just saw a post this past week. Someone said that their mom had just got a Nintendo Switch because she used to enjoy gaming, you know, when the kids were younger. Now they're grown up and she wanted to sort of try it again and try and get into, you know, Mario and stuff like that. And they got her like Princess Peach Showtime and she was having a great time with it because she sort of needed to get used to the analog sticks, basically. She hadn't, you know, gamed in a very long time and was having some trouble using like the two sticks. And it was very cute seeing they're like, oh yeah, so I got her Princess Peach Showtime. I'm getting her set up with it. And just thinking like another person who doesn't have a Switch really wanted one and is not maybe the target audience to wait for the new Switch. This is an older gamer and they're just like, yeah, I just want to play all these games that I see you have and that are available, you know? So while I'm perpetually surprised at how many Switches continue to be sold with the rumors and, you know, knowledge that of like, okay, the next one's coming, you do still look at there's an entire submarket of people who don't have a Switch yet, aren't going to wait until the next one comes out. If anything, they're just happy to see, oh, if I buy this thing right now, there's this many games to play on it. There's, you know, this endless catalog of games that I can get for this right now. And there's still more things coming out this year. So while I'm surprised, like, you know, because for us, we've been playing it this whole time, you know, it's certainly not new. But there are plenty of people still that want this console. I'm really unsure if at this point they could pass PlayStation 2. That seems like too much. When we had speculated about this, like probably last year, you know, when we did the financials and we were still expecting the Switch 2 to come out this year, 2024. And I was like, no, there's no way that they could sell that much, you know, because the Switch 2 is going to come out. Even if they did like a major sale on the original Switch, it's like, I don't think they're passing PlayStation 2. Now that the Switch 2 is delayed, I still don't really feel like they're going to cross that number. That seems like a really big leap, even with their projections of like, I don't know. It would be cool if it surpassed the DS, just to sort of like keep perpetually, you know, besting themselves, essentially. But I think that PlayStation 2 number is just a little too lofty a goal for them to hit in this time. We'll see, though. Like, if Gene, you know, had previously mentioned, if they do some sort of like big sale on the original Switch, they could certainly push a lot more units to even more people who still hadn't gotten one when the Switch 2 comes out. But I don't know. I have my doubts about that PS2 number. That just seems like a really high goal.
Yeah, it is, you know, quite a ways to go this late in the generation. But Gene, Nintendo expects to sell 13.5 million this fiscal year. And Micah was mentioning maybe a price cut, maybe bundles. I think that's all probably part of the plan. But, you know, last year they did the 15.7 million on the heels of Tears of the Kingdom and the Mario movie as well. How do you think they're going to sell these or how do you think they expect to sell these 13.5 million units? Do you think they've got, you know, some tricks up their sleeve for the rest of this year? Gene.
No, I think they'll just outsell the PS2 simply.
Oh, you think
I don't think there's gonna there'll be a price drop to $200, but
yeah,
I think the PS2 will be beaten by the Switch. The Switch has been outselling the PS2 in terms of momentum, in terms of timing still. So even if the Switch 2 came out, the Switch will still continue to sell just like the PS2 did, right? So that's why we went from 155 to 160. So I think if sales continue to go and also wane at the level that they have been, I believe at least the Switch will easily hit 155. And then at that point it'll be arguable which has the more sales, because at that point we might stop counting, you know.
Yeah, and I think something also to consider that would be really interesting is that early in the Switch generation, I believe it was the new 2DS came out after the Switch or right around it. So it's possible that after when Switch 2 or whatever Super Switch comes out, we could see another hardware revision of the Switch that's even crunched down more to get even bigger, sales number, get the price down in order to continue pushing those units. Because as Micah was saying, that library is pretty vast at this point, and I could see that being an appealing lower cost option for a lot of consumers. But I do wonder what they would have in store until Switch 2 at this point. There's a lot of rumors about is Metroid Prime 4 going to be a launch title for the next Switch? Is it going to be the actual swan song? Because we thought Tears of the Kingdom was going to be the swan song.
I feel like you would have to release Metroid Prime on the regular Switch too, because that was their Breath of the Wild promise. They promised this at the beginning of the generation.
Yeah.
That's why Breath of the Wild was on the Wii U, because we fucking bought the Wii U for this game. So you better deliver it.
Yeah. Maybe it's a cross gen or something like that.
I'm sure it'll be cross gen.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. They also updated their top selling list on their website, so we can run through this real quick just because it's crazy seeing the attach rate of some of these games. So at the top of the list, New Super Mario Bros. U at 17.45 million, and then Tears of the Kingdom making the list already this year at 20 million units. Super Mario Party, which is a shame because it's not very good, 20.6 million units. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet at 24. Pokemon Sword and Shield at 26. Super Mario Odyssey at 27. And then Breath of the Wild at 31 million units. Then we get into the big three. Super Mario Bros. Ultimate at 34 million. Animal Crossing New Horizons at 45. And then the juggernaut that says, fuck the big three, it's just big me. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 61.97 million units. So, I don't know, this got me thinking, surely Mario Kart 9 is a launch title for the next Switch. That's something they lead with. It's we got such long tail sales on the last one, which was technically a re-release from the Wii U. Surely that's in the cards, but no. Any thoughts, Micah, as far as this sales data here? I mean, Animal Crossing continuing being number 2. That's one of the huge surprises of this whole generation. This list hasn't changed a great deal over the last year, so I wouldn't expect any big changes, but Tears of the Kingdom in there as well.
Yeah, it really is funny to look at this list and see that from the bottom of the list, with New Super Mario Bros. U, the numbers go up pretty incrementally. All right, they're okay, up by a few million. The jump from Animal Crossing at 45 to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 61 million. It's just oh my God, just realizing that was the game that every kid put on their list pretty much when they were asking for a Switch. And meanwhile, I never bought Mario Kart 8 Deluxe because I was this is a Wii U game. I already own it. I'm not paying for that again. I still have my Wii U copy, and if I want to play Mario Kart, that's what I'll go play. I was waiting this whole time for them to come out with a new Mario Kart and justify me buying it. They have instead just released DLC for it for the last 15 years. But I really hope that we do see Mario Kart 9 as a launch title for the next Switch. That would be excellent, and I will buy it for sure because I love Mario Kart. But it's the same as getting the OLED Switch. I have put it off for so long at this point. I'm not going to buy Mario Kart now. All right, I put it off for this long, thinking, eventually they'll give us an actual game, and no, we just are going to play this remake from the Wii U forever. So that would be something that would be top of my list for them to release, especially launch window for the next Switch. But it is, these numbers are just crazy. The jump, when you get from 4 to the top 3, it's astounding what's the most popular for it. And as we've mentioned before, Animal Crossing, the pandemic helped it so much. I mean, really, it would have been popular. We all had been, those of us who love Animal Crossing had been waiting for it regardless. It still would have been popular. But having everybody stuck at home and feeling afraid, like, that was Cozy Game City. And I can't imagine, like, I'd be curious to know what the difference would be if the pandemic never happened.
Yeah. Well, there is something too about, and I think we talked about this at a different financial type meeting that Nintendo did, about how they were saying that like Switch is the platform that's turning their IP into insane sellers. Like, even for example, while it's not on this top list, a game like Pikmin 4 was sold more than the 3 previous games combined. Now, obviously it has some momentum as a series, but simply just being a new Nintendo game on Switch will carry it quite a bit. Gene, the thing that I was thinking about with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is I remember when it came out, the reason, because I was like Micah, it's like, do I really need to buy this game again? Like, really? I just feel like I just bought it. It's not really all that different. And then seeing how, I think it was in that original Switch reveal, that it's like, oh, well, you can play multiplayer just on the go, whether it's split screen or do the wireless play anywhere. And that was something we acted out. I mean, not intentionally try to be like the commercial, but we were like the commercial. Me and my friends, like, we're on a plane going to PAX, and we all got Mario Kart, and we're all in different rows, and we're playing a multiplayer game on a plane. And it was awesome. It was like this magical thing. And I think both that and Smash Bros, the multiplayer aspect, is something that really drove it to the, I mean, and of course, Smash Bros, the crossover. There's many reasons, but those games kind of had that magical quality, the promise of the Switch in some way.
Yeah, Mario Kart was the game to showcase that this is a multiplayer system. You know, Nintendo is again the only platform holder that is encouraging, you know, more than one person to be playing together in one room. You know, so that's why, you know, reports of the Switch 2 just being just a souped up version of Switch is great, because that's pretty much what they hit it out of the park. It's still a great way for Nintendo to continue to sell the multiplayer, like, in-person family experience at the same time just being able to sell these old games. So yeah, I bought Mario Kart 8 right away when it came out, because I was like, I'm never touching the Wii U ever again. So
Yeah.
why would I want to break out the Wii U, which is so cumbersome to set up, and I've already set it up like 3 times in the last few years. So, you know, it reminds me every single time I set it up why I'm glad that I don't need to set it up anymore, you know. But it's literally just for Xenoblade Chronicles X.
While we're talking about money and sales, I should have put this earlier in the notes, but I want to talk about this from Matt Danger 87 says, "Hey, Brickfisters, after crunching the numbers, Twitter user Pierre485 has confirmed that Nintendo's profit during the Switch era has surpassed the 35 years of Nintendo combined." Take a moment to let that sink in. What do each of you think is the biggest contributing factor to them being so successful during this era? So yeah, this Pierre485 crunched these numbers here and has a nice little graph where you can see like a little bit of that Wii U era in 2014 where they were kind of in the red. But after that, just the insane overall profitability of this company has gone up. And it's amazing too, because you think about the profitability in combination with the quality that people expect and get from Nintendo in terms of their games. And also about, particularly recently with all the different layoffs and stuff, about how Nintendo treats its employees, that people love working there. In fact, the senior leadership of Nintendo and many people that work there are like lifelong employees, that's where they plant their roots and invest themselves because they enjoy working there. And it's a good environment. So, Gene, getting back to Matt's question here, what do you think are some of the biggest factors that led to just this crazy, these crazy numbers? Like I said, or I guess like this Twitter user says, Nintendo's profit during the Switch era surpassed the combined profit from 1981 to 2016. How'd they get there?
This is the result of long-term planning and strategy. This is the result of long-term investment over several decades, finally paying off. You know, you can't the so much of the economy and so many companies always think in 90-day intervals, whereas Nintendo is thinking about 30-year intervals. So you think about, I mean, there's so many different factors in play, but it really is Nintendo's long-term strategy of becoming a multi-generational company, a company that has IP, that has games that appeals to people from ages 5 through 80. Um, Sony and Microsoft don't have that. Period. Sony doesn't have that. You can't sell God of War to kids. I'm sorry. Even Uncharted and The Last of Us, that's not going to happen. You can't have The Last of Us theme park and have it all family friendly. That's not going to happen. So Nintendo's profitability is ironically, I think partially due to their stubbornness and sticking to the family friendly appeal. Look at YouTube. Look at how many videos are being demonetized for violence and saying words like PDF file and whatever. We can't even say words like that without getting demonetized, and we always have to worry and walk eggshells around all this shit. Whereas Nintendo, it's like, oh, here's Peach and here's Bowsette, and that's the riskiest we'll get, and then it's just appealing forever. So that, including with the payoff of Nintendo games finally being HD, and being on a good console, I think a lot of people have been waiting for that, So again, this is generations of waiting. People have been waiting for a Zelda game that controls in a modern way. We got that with Breath of the Wild. People have been waiting for a game like Super Mario Odyssey with really good camera controls. We got that with Super Mario Odyssey. People have been waiting for just a Mario Kart game that's just a be-all end-all Mario Kart. There's Mario Kart 8 again. People have been waiting for a 3D Kirby in the Forgotten Land, sold 7 million, more than ever. So they've just been kind of knocking it out of the park, and they've been kind of finally doing things that I think a lot of fans of Nintendo have been waiting for them to do. But it just again, you mentioned the layoffs too. It just really goes to show the stark difference between how Microsoft and Nintendo does business. You look at a company like Monolith Soft, right? It's only like people like me and Micah and like a couple, like maybe a 1.5 million other people playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3. That is an utter failure. That is less successful than Hi-Fi Rush. And that is a much, much bigger game and a much, much more complicated and probably a much more expensive game to make than Hi-Fi Rush. Yet, we're not worried about Monolith Soft quitting, because Nintendo is able to allocate those resources and use them for other games. So Monolith Soft was instrumental in the construction of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, two of the biggest games for the Switch platform, right? Think about what Tango Gameworks could have contributed to Microsoft, but Microsoft doesn't think like that. That company isn't structured like that. They're not thinking about, oh, well, these are talented, creative people. What if we harness this creativity in some other way, as opposed to just fucking laying them off, just getting rid of them. We have all this creativity, and we were just like, no, just get rid of it. We don't need it.
And I think that some of that with Monolith is like, I'd imagine that Nintendo is better at looking at the full picture, right? Maybe you have someone who is purely a pure hardcore RPG player and they buy a Switch for that. And it's like, hey, well, they sold a console, which Nintendo's always make sure they make a profit, pretty much always, not 100%, but almost always on their platform. So they make money there. It's like, oh, well, you have a Switch? Well, I mean, Mario Kart's pretty fun. Maybe I'll pick that up too. It's like, how can we meet people where they are and introduce them to Nintendo? And even if this game only sells, a few million, that's okay. Not that they have for the most part, I mean, Nintendo sells much more than that, but they're looking at things in the big picture. The other thing you said that really got me thinking is this idea of Nintendo thinking in 30 years instead of, quarters, right? And the thing that's particularly interesting about the Switch is that I'm not saying that Nintendo always was moving towards a hybrid platform. They've always had this idea on the mind as far back as think as like Super Nintendo with the Super Game Boy attachment. It's like, hey, play your Game Boy game on your TV and then have it on the go on your Game Boy. The Game Boy Advance player on the Game Boy Advance, and then
Game and Watch to the very, very first experiment with video games in Nintendo. Game and Watch, they were always about mobile gaming. The whole point the reason why Nintendo even exists as a video game company is because one guy saw a guy on a train playing with a calculator and was like, that guy could use something else to play with. That's the entire. We can thank that guy on the train for being bored with his fucking calculator, for Nintendo being in video games at all. But that's a dream for somebody on a subway train to have something to do, and that's what they achieved with the Switch.
Yeah, and two, just their unique position to make the Switch as a device. The years of understanding batteries and power efficiency, and they had to make a sacrifice of having their kind of two pillar mobile and console, but you can see that it paid off and that they didn't result a loss of them eating part of their own market. They were able to just expand it significantly.
Grow it. Yeah, they just grew it significantly, and that's because they ducked out of the tech race. And like you made a great point that they understand battery life really well, right? So they were able to make that balance. That's why the Switch is so underpowered. But when the time came out, it was still really good, and it's still really pretty good for battery. I think the Steam Deck is actually miraculous for how much like how long it lasts and the kinds of games you play on there. But that's just how far technology has come. Like I can't believe that I can play Elden Ring for like 4 hours straight on a battery life. That's crazy.
Yeah. Micah, I know that you haven't been a lifelong Nintendo player, and did you had a Wii U before Switch, or did you get the Wii U after?
Oh yeah, I bought the Wii U with my tax return, maybe the year after it came out. Like I couldn't afford to get one right away, but with my tax return, like the following year, I got my Wii U finally. So yeah, I had one pretty early on.
But so you were kind of more of an Xbox player as your main platform, and now the Switch has kind of, it's changed you. From what I understand is that you're kind of like, yeah, Switch is my main platform now. So what do you feel like as far as like the Switch's success drew you over, and clearly millions of other people, to leading to this kind of insane profit for Nintendo?
Absolutely. So I was huge into 3DS, and because it brought back that childhood nostalgia of playing on my Game Boy Advance, and just like because I had the Game Boy Advance SP, and she still works. It still works. The battery life is terrible now, but it does still work. It brought back a lot of nostalgia when I was playing 3DS. And of course, as I started getting more and more into JRPGs, and there was this huge catalog of them on 3DS, and I just loved it. So 3DS to, getting the Wii U, Switch moving back to handheld. And that's my favorite way to play games. A lot of it is the nostalgia factor. A lot of it's practical, but there's just something about the handheld games that makes me feel like a kid again. A lot of it just reminds me too of my grandpa always had, we've mentioned these before, those like unbranded, handheld game devices where it's like 100 games and they're like just like, the gray screen, it's things like Snake and, various little games like that, Tetris. And my grandpa always had those. He'd replace them as soon as they died, and like they didn't work anymore. And it just really, nostalgia is a huge part of why I love handheld gaming so much. And bringing it for travel, easy peasy. Like it's just things like that of I can bring a really big game with me on an airplane versus having to say like, okay, well, I'm bringing this experience with me that it's not a premium experience, but it's something to play while I'm traveling. That's not what it feels like on Switch. I'm bringing a premium experience with me on the go. And looking at these numbers too in this chart, and in here is like the Switch Lite release as well. What that did for a lot of people of like, oh, this is perfect for the people who wanted a dedicated handheld again, because as you mentioned, Dustin, in some sense they have sort of eliminated part of their market of like, we went from having the 3DS and the Wii U, so you have like your home console, your away console. Now we just have one. Is that going to hurt us? And they end up bringing it back in some way that like, well, here's the handheld only option. And people loved it. There were still plenty of people who were like, oh, I absolutely need one of these. So those kind of decisions like that of they kind of restructured how their fan base plays their games, and then they were able to give us back the option to have a handheld only device. It's a little bit cheaper, a little bit smaller. I just feel like they made some really great decisions in this time. And for someone like me who just, I'd call myself a handheld gaming enthusiast. It's just my favorite way to play. They made the right decisions this time around. The Wii U was baffling to me. I wanted to like it so badly. There are a few, times I had fun with it. I mean, I think everyone who owned it at least had some fun with it, right? But like Jean said, when I set mine up last year to test Xenoblade Chronicles X, I was like, I can't believe how cumbersome this is. Just getting through the setup menus was awful. Just getting the thing out of the box. This should be exciting. Like setting up a new Xbox or setting up a new PlayStation. Like this should be exciting. It should be easy, and it was not. And I'm just thinking to myself, and I'm an adult doing this. Imagine having, your uncle try and help you with this as a child. It would have been a nightmare. I just feel like they made a lot of really great decisions with the Switch, from the design to the software, and really corrected a lot of missteps that they made with the Wii U. They have absolutely taken me away from like Xbox. That was my main console for a long time. And now I'm just really, whatever is available on Switch, it's probably where I'm going to play it, because it is just my favorite way to play.
I think that the other thing, just looking at this chart, and for the audience, it's basically a chart showing Nintendo's profits by fiscal year. And you can see the huge jump that 2020 brought. And this is something that we're talking a lot, both on Sacred Symbols and the Dukes are talking about, is that a lot of companies made a lot of big bets based on 2020. And we're not able to maintain that success throughout it. And that's why we're seeing insane layoffs and issues across the board. Whereas Nintendo now, you saw a little dip in probably 2022, but now, or maybe that was 23. I'm not sure exactly how this chart lines up, but there's a little dip, but now have set a new record in terms of profits. And they also didn't necessarily make like any kind of huge bets. They stayed the course, continued to deliver the games, expanded, I guess, outside of their main game stuff with the Mario movie and theme parks and stuff like that. So it's good to see a company that had these records, didn't bet the farm on it, and is continuing and being more successful after the pandemic. You don't see that in gaming.
See, here's the thing about... Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, no, you first, Gene. No, you go first.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, here's the thing about Nintendo's profits. Like, we mentioned theme parks too, but like John Cartwright over at Good Vibes Gaming or whatever pointed this out. Every Kirby game has only been sold like a million copies too, and there's like 50 Kirby games. So Nintendo's been funding this series that doesn't do all that well. It's pretty niche. Very niche. Only sells 1 million copies if they're lucky. Yet Kirby is still going strong, and well, we do know Kirby and the Forgotten Land sold at least 7 million, so it's better than ever, right? But Kirby as a series has been going strong because even though the games don't make that much, one, the production costs aren't as high, but two, think of all the merchandising that Nintendo Nintendo money makes. Think about all the Kirby plushies that sell. There's so much more external factors besides just buying games or like watching a TV show that Nintendo has going on that Sony and Microsoft simply don't. You can try to make like they try to make Halo toys, but you can't build excitement around a property that doesn't have excitement around it anymore. And that's the thing. Nintendo is still making good games. Ultimately, when you watch the Mario movie, you can go home and it turns out you can actually play something that is even better than the movie that you just saw. And that's the kind of synergy that Sony is kind of getting. It's so awesome to be able to watch the Spider-Man movie, like to watch Across the Spider-Verse, and then come back home and then just play Miles Morales in the Spider-Verse costume. It's that kind of synergy that Microsoft is still trying to reach, and maybe they finally did with the Fallout show, right? But Nintendo has been doing it easily for this whole time. You know, obviously with Pokemon is the obvious choice, but I don't mention that because it's almost like cheating, you know?
Right. Micah, you had something you want to say as well?
Oh, yeah. And Jean said a lot of it very well, because what I was going to speak to is the quality of the product. When you think about brands that got really popular during the pandemic era, and one of them I've talked to Holly about, Instant Pot. They came out with all these new products. Instant Pot was already popular, like a cult hit. During the pandemic and people were cooking at home, Instant Pot was on fire, and they came out with all these new iterations and products. And post-pandemic, though, people are not cooking at home as much. A lot of people didn't stick with it. The same thing has happened in the grilling sector, people not sticking with it. A lot of these brands that had a really big boom during that era have now seen profits fall, which is expected just due to how many people adopted new hobbies, for example, things like that. But when you look at these charts and see Nintendo's numbers not dropping like dramatically like that, like Instant Pot was in trouble for a bit of like they spread themselves so thin with these new products, which were then not selling because people were going back to restaurants, going back to takeout. It speaks to the quality of the Switch that they got all these new users and retained so many of them. And like Jean said, it's their other aspects of their company between the merchandise, which is top quality. We've spoken before how like we love Amiibo because like they're genuinely nice figures for sub $20, right? And yeah, they're the Mario movie, insanely popular. So it's really the quality of their product like is proven to me in this way, because not only did they get all these new people into their system during this time when a lot of people were adopting new hobbies, but they've retained so many of them. That is like the big point to me of like how well they're doing, and just how many people they're like won over and will hopefully carry over into the next generation of like, we've got like all this new sector of fans, and we're hopefully going to bring them along to Switch 2, so long as they don't do anything dumb with the design of that product.
Yeah, it's the Instant Pot thing. That's a good comparison.
Oh yeah, they went nuts with like new designs. Not that this is a cooking show, but like it was, if you look at like some of the stuff Instant Pot did, it was almost silly. Some of the things they were coming out with like this like giant Instant Pot that did not sell very well. It was just like they went nuts with all these new ideas because they were like, oh, everybody likes it. It's like, this won't last forever. Like, what are you doing? And they put themselves in like real trouble by doing that. At least Nintendo was like, oh yeah, you know, we have some new ideas, but they didn't come out with like 30 iterations of the Switch, you know, like it was like, I don't know. They just made some really great decisions, I feel, this time around, which surprised a lot of people who thought they were dead after the Wii U and that they'd never recover.
Yeah. Yeah. The Instant Pot thing, it's like you buy an Instant Pot, it's great, you love it, but what really can, other than like you said, a bigger size, it's like, okay, I already have one. I don't need another one. But I guess it's just a different thing with Switch. It's like, well, here's software, here's a subscription service, here's a movie, here's merchandise, all that stuff. And it ropes back to a few months ago when we were talking about that chart that they had where it's like all these things feed into the main business.
It's all about selling the games. Ultimately, that's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to sell video games, and what a concept! not a subscription service or anything like that. It's like, buy this $60, $70 game. That's it.
Right. Surprising that a game company wants to sell games, but it is in this day and age.
Can I say something real quick about
please
to the Patreon audience too? I've noticed that some people have called me out for interrupting Micah all the time. So first of all, one, I want to apologize to you, Micah, if that's the case. And two, the reason why I interrupt so many times in podcasts is, one, I'm still learning. You know, this is still a new skill to learn. Two, I live in Washington, D.C., where we talk over people all the time. That's just what we do. We're not going to wait for you to finish talking. But three, part of the reason why I think the reason why I interrupt Micah all the time is because I'm just very excited to talk to her. So that's it. So she's probably saying something, and I just want to like say something to her right away. So that's the energy that I want to give off, or I'm trying to give off anyways. So I'm sorry, Micah.
Oh, no, Gene, like I had seen some of those comments and that's what I felt. I was like, no, we're all just excited to talk to each other, genuinely. And none of us are annoyed at the other of like, I'm always being interrupted. It really is like, no, I can sense your excitement. That's the big part of it is like, no, I can totally tell. It's like, yeah, when somebody makes a really good point and it's like, oh my God, yeah, I want to like get in on that.
Yeah,
I'm not bothered by it. Like, it really is just one of those things of like, no, we're all friends.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty
like,
much it. I'm not like, I need to shut Mike up right now.
yeah, you're not shutting me down in a boardroom when I'm trying to like pitch an idea. And
Exactly.
you're, like, stomping on it.
There's no glass ceilings here to shatter or anything like that. We're just all in the glass house.
Glass house, and we're recording remote too, and so that's
yes.
I would say all of those factors combined makes it tough. You just gotta, it takes time and it gets used to, and we are excited. All very valid points. Okay, two other things to talk about from this from this financial report, and then we can get into some other stuff along with your questions. I want to read real quick. There was a Q&A with President Furukawa, who they were asked about the expectations of digital and physical on the next Switch. Many of these questions were about in this Q&A about the next Switch, not saying very much, but I did find this interesting. So I want to read what he said here. He said, quote, "Our objective is not to simply increase the share of digital sales, but to maximize overall game software sales, including sales of physical software. This policy will remain unchanged going forward. In context, we need to enhance user friendliness for both consumers who play packaged software and those who play download versions. Going forward, we intend to keep working on improvements to devise better solutions. Compared to 2017, when the Nintendo Switch was launched, digitization has progressed in many aspects of our lives. At this moment, if digital content continues to become more successful and convenient over time, we believe that more of our consumers will choose digital products with the successor to the Nintendo Switch, just as they did with Nintendo Switch." So, with that, there's not a lot to say other than I like Nintendo's approach that they're continuing to say, we will meet you where you are in terms of physical versus digital in a world where Sony is pushing heavily for digital because they make more money there, and where Xbox has gone basically completely digital at this point, whether it's Game Pass or, games not getting released on disc anymore, stuff like that. Just nice to see a money hungry company like Nintendo, where they do make less money off of physical. They say no. And a lot of this is part of their home market being Japan, where they deeply care about physical games, that they're not going to be making some kind of crazy digital push for the next Switch. So you and we can keep our hands on physical games for as long. They can peel them off our dead hands if we have to. And Nintendo is there to help us with that.
Man, Japan is so nice about traditional media. Like for years, newspapers, I think newspapers are only beginning to struggle now, but for years, newspapers were doing really, really well in Japan too.
Yeah.
It's like none of the issues that we have in the media here exist in Japan.
Yeah. That was one of the nice things when I was there, seeing all the CDs for sale. It was
nice. A lot of CDs there with the nice packaging, the little plastic that it comes in. I love that shit.
The last bit of this actually comes from a tweet from the Japanese Nintendo account, getting the classic. We got the "This is Miyamoto." We got a tweet directly from the president here. He says, "This is Furukawa, president of Nintendo. We will make an announcement about the successor to Nintendo Switch within this fiscal year. It will have been over 9 years since we announced the existence of Nintendo Switch back in March 2015. We will be holding a Nintendo Direct this June regarding the Nintendo Switch software lineup for the latter half of 2024. But please be aware that there will be no mention of the Nintendo Switch successor during that presentation."
I love it. So good.
So this was kind of the elephant in the room. I think that this was a situation where they gotta acknowledge it for the stockholders, the shareholders about this with their fiscal planning. Hey, we are doing this. We don't have a damn thing to say about it other than it's coming, and we will have an announcement this fiscal year. So with that, we also got the announcement of a Nintendo Direct in June. And I want to read 2 write-ins at once. First from Kazdan Risk, who says, "Hey, Punch Up peeps. Nintendo announced a June Direct, and I'm curious what games you think they will announce and release to finish out the Switch's final year as their primary console. Zelda HD Collection, Metroid Prime 2 and 3 Collection, Luigi's Mansion 1 HD? Take care." And then Pen and Pants says, "What up, Punch Munchers?" This is all capital letters, very aggressive. "Where are the ports of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker?"
Mm-hmm.
That is all. Gene, we've heard rumor about this Twilight Princess Wind Waker ports. It feels like it could be a nice little option.
I wish. Jeff Grubb has been fucking talking about this for like the last 10 years. I swear to God, you know, it's this is like Jeff Grubb's like I don't know, Rosebud or something. He's just never gonna get it. You know,
it's like when Geraldo went to open Al Capone's vault.
Yeah,
there was nothing in it.
Yeah, this is Jeff Grubb's holy grail. But yeah, I mean, this is my holy grail too, man. I have been waiting for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess for a while, and I know that most people like prefer Wind Waker too, and I kind of do too. But I really have grown to like really love and appreciate Twilight Princess as just like the best version of the basic Zelda 64 or Ocarina of Time formula. I really want to play Twilight Princess again. I'm so ready for just a straightforward Zelda,
Yeah, and I think especially
that would sell a lot of Switches too. Just sell another Zelda themed Switch Lite. I might buy that shit.
Yeah,
and especially if it's like a Switch Lite OLED. If it's a Switch Lite OLED, I'm absolutely buying another Switch. That's my 7th Switch right there.
7th Switch, lock it in.
Yeah,
I think that especially now with Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, there are a lot of new Zelda fans that have only experienced maybe the new open world era of Zelda. Maybe they checked out the Game Boy remake. Which one
Link's
is that?
Awakening. Yeah,
Link's Awakening.
But you're right though. For millions of people, Breath of the Wild is their Ocarina of Time. You know.
Yeah.
So I think these people need a little history lesson in terms of like what Zelda has been. Link's Awakening is a good preview into the past, but a link to the past.
It's a link. Well, it's not a link to the past, but it is a link to the past. Yeah.
I mean, it is a direct sequel to A Link to the Past, so there's that.
True.
So, man, a re-release of Link Between Worlds would be amazing too. I don't know if you could. I feel like you can probably pull that off in one screen.
Yeah, I would think so.
Did you play that one? Did you guys play that one?
Yeah, it was I'm trying to remember. I don't know. Maybe I didn't finish it. I remember playing that on a road trip once, and I remember thinking the 3D in that game was actually pretty sick.
It was really, really good. Yeah, you definitely played it. I'm like you. I don't remember beating it. I absolutely definitely beat it, but I don't remember beating it, and my memory of it is very, very low because I only played it once. But it was really good though, so I could definitely use another. But yeah, you're right though. The 3D application was really good for the 3DS, and I don't know, it kind of needs it. I don't know if it needs it, but it was really good.
I may be alone on this, but I actually like the 3D on the 3DS. I kept it on almost always. Actually, I was into it. I was like, dude, playing Ocarina of Time in 3D, that was cool. That was awesome. But Micah, as far as this June Direct, it's tough. We're getting, as we've been saying, the end of the Switch life cycle. They still somehow plan to sell a lot of units. I don't know what they get. I mean, we talked about Metroid, this Zelda pack. Is there anything that you would like to see or expect to see at this?
It's hard to say because some of the things that I was hoping to see for sort of the final year of the Switch, I'm hesitant on if we're actually going to get them because knowing Switch 2 is coming. Like, I really wanted another Yoshi game for Switch, but I don't know if they're going to release that now or wait until Switch 2 is out and it's going to be on Switch 2 and maybe it'll also be on original Switch. But it's things like that I was waiting for, like, oh, this console's been out long enough. We could totally have another Yoshi game. But I don't have much faith that they're going to do it. I think re-releases are a stronger bet especially if they do want to hit the sales goals that they've set of another 13 million units, then doing something like some of these Zelda, collections would just be a smart move. And they definitely could have them still prepped and ready for when the new Switch comes out. Hey, it's available here too if you didn't already buy it. Or if you're, one of us crazy collectors and you're just going to buy it again. I think those are a safer bet than something like what I originally had in mind, maybe last year of like, oh, maybe we'll get like one more, Yoshi game, one more Kirby game, for example. I'm not leaning on those at all, but I think some of these like remasters would be a good bet. I also am glad that they got ahead of the rumor mill with just saying that the Switch successor won't be announced, at the Direct, just to get rid of any doubts essentially of like, oh, they didn't mention it. Is something wrong? It's like they're just getting ahead of that. And I do appreciate it as a consumer, especially of having those expectations set and not being wildly disappointed or feeling concerned that, okay, here's the big Direct and they still haven't mentioned it. So I am glad that they came out and said it. It's a little disappointing in its own way, but I am glad that they just went ahead and made the announcement.
You reminded me I had an evil idea that I put out to the Discord for Nintendo to do. Talking about like, okay, well, these late gen Switch games that assumingly they're going to have some kind of presence on the next Switch, like and I think we talked about this last episode, like, do they offer $10 upgrades? What do they do? Mm-hmm. Does it just have a patch that it runs better on the next Switch? I was like, oh, what about Nintendo doing, something like backwards compatibility plus available on Nintendo Switch Online? Okay, you want to play those games better? Sign up for Nintendo Switch Online. You get those upgrades free. So it's a horrible idea. I feel ashamed that I even thought of it, but I'm like, that's something Nintendo might think about.
Their online subscription though is really cheap still. Like their online subscription is still super affordable. That they could nickel and dime me a little bit if they upcharged that as like a $5 or $10 like per year like upgrade. Like that would be wildly popular to be like, okay, yeah, you're not paying $10 per game for this like upgrade on your Switch game. You're paying it just like as part of your subscription. They're listening, Dustin. They're probably going to use that because that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, it's I don't know how I feel about it. Last question before we move on to the next thing. Just one quick gut check. Chase Sam says, "Hey, Breakfasters, with the new rumors around Switch 2 swirling, do you foresee Nintendo will fully adopt the $70 price tag for all of their games? We heard a taste of that with Tears of the Kingdom last year. Or will they have a split pricing of $70 for their big titles such as Mario, Zelda, Metroid, and $60 for standard games? Thanks, y'all." Gene, $70? Lock it in for Switch 2?
Yeah, it's $70. That's just the price of games right now. It's just time is moving on and things are more expensive. Hopefully you're earning more money these days. I hope so for your sake and everyone else's. But I don't. It's not going to go back.
Yeah, I agree with you, Micah. They may be sticking 60 or going to 70.
I think they're going to go up to 70. I do think they will keep their tiered pricing model, though. For example, because I was just double checking, Pikmin 4 was a $60 game. Pikmin 1 and 2 collection was $50. I do think that they'll continue to price their games at a value that they find fair. So they are at least acknowledging in some sense, they're like, hey, yeah, these are two, we're putting these games on Switch. They're smaller titles relatively. We're going to charge you $50 for both of them. I think they will continue to do things like that, in part because it's just what we sort of expect from them and how they have been pricing their games for the last several years. Also, to the family-friendly aspect of Switch, having a decent value, especially for parents and everything. That is always going to be a factor, in my opinion, of how Nintendo does business, is recognizing that they are marketing to parents a lot of the time and having games that are a good value. Like you get this double pack for $50. That's pretty good. So I do hope that they'll continue that sort of tiered pricing of, setting their games. They're not just going to default all be $70. I do think, though, that they're going to move to 70 for their key releases.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the tiered pricing approach. They definitely do explore that quite a bit. Metroid Prime Remastered launching at $40 is another great example of like, yeah, it's not quite a new game price, but it is fresh and new and remastered. So kind of spreading things across the board. But I think we can lock in $70 for the most part on new releases. Okay, so that was our very long segment on Nintendo financials, but a lot of good stuff in there, and that was fun. Let's move on to this next one. There's not a lot to say in my write-up here, but very interesting shift from Square Enix, who recently also had their financials and basically committed to a stronger focus on multi-platform. So in the newly published 3-year medium-term business plan from Square Enix, they revealed they have a 4-pillar plan. And one of these pillars being a new multi-platform approach. Square wants to, quote, build an environment where more customers can enjoy our titles. And listed in this approach is Nintendo platforms. So that means Switch and presumably the new Switch as well. And we've seen a lot of Switch releases for Square Enix, tons actually, but they still have kind of done a thing where it's like certain games are only on PlayStation. I was going to say some games only on Xbox, but that's certainly not true. Certain games being multi-platform for all, but it sounds like Square wants to double down on having their stuff in as many places as possible. So, Gene, you're big on Square Enix. All three of us are, really. How do you feel about this? A lot of people are bringing up their two most expensive games recently, Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, both being PlayStation exclusives. Whether those games or games of those caliber, I'll say, will be able to run on the next Switch, I think is questionable. But what do you think about this and them kind of spreading the field for more players?
I mean, I hear that the Switch is more powerful than the Steam Deck. And if so, the Steam Deck runs FS7 Remake just fine. So I feel like it would be able to run, even just a slightly less powerful version of Rebirth on there. And even 16 too, because let's be real, 16 isn't that like amazing of a game too. It didn't break boundaries of, Horizon Forbidden West is a much more impressive game technologically speaking. And I can see that game. Well, actually, although apparently Horizon Forbidden West runs really great on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
And that's kind of made me want to check it out again, actually, because Forbidden West, it wasn't a bad game, actually, when you think about it. What were we talking about again?
Just them focusing more on multi-platform.
That's right, yeah. Square Enix. I don't know why people are in such a panic about this. I feel like this is exactly what they've been saying for the last 2 years, that they need to scale back. I think they the lesson, Colin always keeps talking about that stretch of 8 weeks where they release like fucking 6 or 7 games, including like Saga Frontier and blah blah blah, like all of these fucking games. I think it does seem like Square Enix is very well aware of that issue, and they are trying to slim things down. A lot of people point out that most of the Square Enix exclusives are actually with Nintendo. Actually, Nintendo has more Square Enix exclusives than PlayStation, but PlayStation has the more expensive ones. That's the one where the hundreds of millions of dollars are going into, and it's not panning out because Japanese people don't want a PlayStation 5, they want a Switch. Again, it goes back to that man in the subway, that's what Japanese folks want. And Final Fantasy has lost the Japan market for the most part,
A lot of people, when this news came out, were talking about how this was a huge win for Xbox. And it's like, oh, we're finally going to get these games over on Xbox. And while I think that's certainly true that they'll be releasing a lot more of these games on Xbox,
it's not going to move the needle.
I don't think that. Yeah, it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about PC and it's about Nintendo.
It's about PC and Nintendo because PC and Nintendo are the two biggest platforms in Japan. It's not Xbox, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, Micah, what do you think about this? Obviously happy for Xbox. I'm happy for any person that wasn't able to play some of these games being able to play them, but clearly they see that's like, man, we need to make sure if we're going to invest this much money into a game, we got to make sure that we're not limiting ourselves too much by being just on PlayStation.
Now, I would be very excited about this for sure, just to see more of their games available. It's one of those things that comes down to, just more people having access to it and having access to it the way that they would prefer to play. Some of these games, for example, to me, just lend themselves better to a handheld. Something like when we talk about Xenoblade Chronicles, for example, the first game having like hundreds of side quests, right? The second game having fewer. We'll get into that later. But it's just like a game like that, just chipping away at it. Final Fantasy experiences can be very long games, and they would be excellent to play some of these more recent titles, some of these really beefy titles on Switch like that, and chip away at them, being able to take it with you on the go. I am all for this, of them hopefully bringing more games to Nintendo. I'm also, reading into it. Maybe they have some intel about the capabilities of Switch 2 that give them more confidence that their upcoming games will be, well suited on the Switch. I'm going to hope for that's part of what, maybe they're reading into here, is that, all right, the intel we've gotten on this upcoming console, whether they already have like a dev kit or something, or just whether they've already been given some information from Nintendo about it. I'm going to hope that part of their confidence in this plan is also knowing that the Switch 2 is going to be a good home for their games and that they will run well. That's me just being, very excited about the possibilities of like, okay, if they're sort of committing to this already, what's that mean for the next Switch, what they already know perhaps.
Right. I imagine this will be a good plan until like PlayStation 6 and whatever Xbox does comes out, and then they're going to be maybe in a more dicey situation when they're dealing with a much bigger divide. But we'll have to see about what this next Switch can do. Okay, a little surprise drop from Nintendo this past week. Nintendo World Championships NES Edition just randomly announced. It releases on July 18th for $29.99. So here's what the game's about from their website. Quote, test your speed running skills across more than 150 challenging moments from 13 classic NES games. Compete against players around the world online, challenge your friends on the couch, or try to see how far you can push your personal bests. So these 13 games, these NES games that are included in the challenges are Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3 with the Lost Levels, which is Mario 2 in Japan, Zelda 1 and 2, Metroid, Donkey Kong, Balloon Fight, Excite Bike, Ice Climber, Kid Icarus, and Kirby's Big Adventure. And they're also doing a physical deluxe set for this. I already have it pre-ordered, $59.99. This includes a physical version of the game, a gold replica NES cart, 13 art cards, and 5 enamel pins. And let me tell you, those 5 pins, that's why I bought it. It looks so nice. But this is kind of in the legacy of those games they did for Wii U. What were those called? The NES Remix. Oh yeah, NES Remix Pack. Kind of a sequel to that. So, Gene, when you saw this announcement, does this intrigue you at all? Some of these challenge levels, they had a nice little trailer showing the previous winners of the Nintendo World Championship. What are your thoughts?
Shockingly, I completely missed a ball on a dropped ball on getting these physical. Is it sold out? Is it done?
I don't know if it's sold out. I know it was available longer than I expected, but I'll take a look for you here while you.
It's grayed out on a Nintendo site, so now I'm just worried that I'm just totally just fucked from getting.
I'll check Target and Best Buy for you.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You don't need to check.
No, this is how good I am.
You're not my wife. You don't need to go shopping for me.
You can pre-order right now on Target.
On Target, all right.
Here you go.
I'll do that.
Let me serve you, Gene.
Thank you.
What do you think about the game? Are you excited about this?
Kind of. I'm definitely old enough to remember the original NES World Championship. I even saw. I don't remember if I saw the Wizard in the theater or not. The Wizard movie, which the entire NES World Championship game revolved around, was a huge moment, and it felt so big. It felt like I saw it in theater, but I don't think I saw it in theater. But yeah, I definitely am old enough to remember this game. But I wasn't that intrigued because I'm not I don't know how much I play it. I don't really play the Nintendo speedrun games. I don't really play WarioWare. I do love WarioWare, but it's not a series that I've continued to keep up on. I don't really do the NES remix games and Mario 99 and Tetris 99. I haven't really done any of that stuff, so that's why I wasn't really that interested. And then I thought about it, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm a Nintendo collector. I should collect this gold cartridge set. So that's where I'm at basically. I'm gonna get it sooner or later, definitely.
Micah, how do you feel about this? I know that I can't remember what show it was. I was like, I gotta stop buying collector's editions because they just come with a bunch of junk. But I have all of the Mario 35th anniversary enamel pin set, and then when I saw this pin set, I was like, it's over. I gotta $60 too. I felt like that felt pretty fair. So, what do you think about this?
It's a good price.
This is a gorgeous set. Like, that outer box is so pretty. And yeah, this set is fantastic. I'm not interested in this myself because it's definitely not for me. Speed runs of challenging moments from old games, like I'm not gonna be able to handle one of them. Do I enjoy watching other people do speed runs? Absolutely. But as soon as I saw it, I felt a little bit of FOMO because I'm like, this set is so cool, but this is not a game for me. It's a really awesome idea. I love that they put together this cool collector's edition, and I like the idea. And I think this is something that people are going to be super into and challenging their friends and stuff. But it's not a Micah game by any means. But I'm glad it's coming out. I think it's another idea that's like, yeah, people are super excited for it. You see on forums and everything, like hyped for this game. But no, it's not something that I'm particularly interested in.
Yeah, there's a you got it, Gene?
I got it.
Lock in?
Yeah.
Good.
It's been so long since I shopped on Target.com that my address from 2 houses ago is my address there. So
yeah. There is a Japanese version as well that you can import that includes 2 Famicom controllers, which would have been nice if they included the NES controllers in this, even if it was $80 and it included the 2 NES controllers. That would have been sick. But that's available out there for those interested. Let's do some quickies here. I wrote down the wrong thing in the timestamps, but I'm fast on my feet, just like how I got that link for Gene. 2 quick quickies. Number 1, Nintendo, they are discontinuing their Twitter/X integration. This might have something to do with what's like $40,000 API access that Twitter is charging now. So you'll no longer be able to post directly from your Switch to Twitter. You're going to have to do the janky thing where you make your own Switch Wi-Fi, transfer it over to your phone. Pretty annoying, but it's just the way it goes. PlayStation also discontinuing their Twitter integration, and I'm not surprised at that price point. The last thing, there was a lot of news about this, and I was debating about how much we wanted to go into it, but we already have so much other speculation in this episode. I can only deal with so much. Switch 2 specs. There's some leaked specs coming out. Number 1 being that the internal storage size will now start at 256 gigabytes, which is above from the 32, I think, in the standard Switch. So that makes sense that the game file sizes will be bigger. Having that right off the bat will be nice. Also, 12 gigabytes of RAM. It's going to be a more powerful device. But when we get more firm specs to talk about that we can go into detail, we will. But I just wanted to make sure we mention those. And you can go read up on those if you'd like. So let's get into what we've been playing now. Let's see here. Gene, let's start with you because we talked about Hades and then talked about anime titties. So let's actually talk about Hades for real this time. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I never... Hades 1 is a rogue, kind of like a roguelike, right? A roguelike ARPG. And to get the true ending of Hades 1, you have to beat it 10 times in a row. Not really 10 times in a row, but just 10 times in general, right? To get the full story, and I never actually did that. I never finished it. So I have a physical Switch cartridge. So I thought, why don't I finish it on Switch? And I did. I was 6 runs in. I just cleared out the last 4, saw the ending. Cool, awesome. did the whole festival, and now I jumped into Hades 2 because Hades 2 is shadow dropped in early access last week, basically, and I beat that too. Hades 2. If you tried Hades 2, right, Dustin?
Not yet. I was debating because I kind of just want to wait till it's done. But
yeah, it's probably worth waiting until it's done because I would say that Hades 2, in my view, because a lot of the game critics seems to love Hades 2. They're like, oh my god, this is so much better. I think it's about the same as Hades 1, and in that it makes some improvements, and there's some things that are a little different that I'm not sure I like more. But I think it's partially is because I'm just used to the Hades 1 car, and then Hades 2, Melinoe does control quite differently than Zagreus does. She's a much different character. She's very magic focused, so you definitely have to think more about that. But the game is remarkably complete. You can kind of go to the last boss, so the full game is basically there. It just they just don't have some of the perks and some of the quality of life stuff that they're still working on, and balance stuff. And I think one more area that they need to finish too. But really, you can finish the story out right here, and like not finish not get the full ending, but you can still go all the way to the end. So it's pretty good. I really enjoyed Hades 2, but after I beat it, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not gonna touch this again until basically version 1.0, which I'm looking forward to. But a part of me did feel like I didn't want to play Hades 2 because it was the opposite effect of Stellar Blade, where the whole discourse started to rub me the wrong way. I was really annoyed with how Hades 2 is being used as a cudgel against Stellar Blade. Of course, it's very super annoying that Stellar Blade is being used against Woke, especially since Kim Hyung Tae just yesterday confirmed, no, I actually do want to cover up Eve. That was actually my choice, you know. But on the other hand, it's so annoying to see all these fucking articles about, oh, Hades 2 is so sexy. I love this kind of sexy though. You know, it makes me so fucking horny. Hades 2. You know, so fucking sick of that fucking Discord. Stop fucking talking about Hades 2 this way. Just a good game, you know? And I'm playing Hades 2. I'm like, I'm not turned on by any. I do think Melinoe is hot, the main character. But in the same way that Zagreus was really hot, he was a very, very attractive man, and here comes Melinoe, a very, very attractive blonde woman. So she's totally hot. But then all these other gods, I'm just like, oh, you know, just give me the fucking power. Just shut up and give me the power, you know. So that's been fun. But I do like Hades. Hades 1 is definitely I consider one of the best games like ever made. Even though it's not my favorite, I think it's almost solid all throughout. So that's why Hades 2, it was just really hard to follow. I'm honestly back to when Hades 2 was announced, I was disappointed that Hades 2 exists at all. Because Supergiant Games doesn't do sequels, and I was really surprised that they decided to double down on the sequel. You know, I guess I'm not surprised due to how successful Hades 1 was, and I do think that you can probably keep squeezing more out of the Hades formula, but I don't want a Hades 3. I don't want a Hades 3 at all. Just like I don't want an Elden Ring 2, and we can talk about Elden Ring in a bit too. But I'm playing Elden Ring right now, and I'm like, if FromSoft announces Elden Ring 2, I don't know how I'd feel about it. I'll be obviously excited and intrigued, but I'll also be a little stressed out. So.
What was the game they did? I'm trying to remember. The one that was Pyre. Dude, that Pyre was sick. People, I feel like, didn't give Pyre enough credit.
Yeah. Like I didn't
NBA Jam with wizards.
Yeah, maybe I should play that one. Especially since you put it that way. I've never heard of it fucking described that way, but that's amazing. I tried a little bit, and I just jumped out just because I didn't have time for it at the time. But I do have it. Yeah. Bastion I love too, of course.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that I loved Bastion. That game was fantastic.
Bastion was great. I could play Bastion over and over again.
So let's see what else. Oh, and you got Hellblade? Now
other games, yeah. Yeah. Because Hellblade 2, Senua's Sacrifice, right? It's coming out.
I always mix them up. Which one's which? Hellblade.
I think it's Senua's Sacrifice, right?
That's the first one. Senua's Saga is the second one.
I fucking hate these subtitles or whatever like that. It's just they're just so boring, and like Senua's Saga, Senua's Sacrifice is the first one, and Senua's Saga is the second one.
Yes.
So she has to sacrifice first before she has to go on a saga.
Apparently,
I guess. Yeah, that's the story. That's how the story goes. Hellblade 1 is actually out for the Switch too. And I actually have it on the Switch, but I am playing the Xbox version. I figured I should play the HD Xbox One X version, which is in 60 frames per second. So I've been playing that for a little bit. I did try it earlier when it came out, and I just dropped off because I thought it was a little boring. And then so I tried it again now, and I dropped off again because I think it's a little boring. I think Hellblade is fucking boring, guys. I'm sorry. I think it's a boring fucking game. I think that I'm sure the story does something interesting by the end, and that's what a lot of people I trust tell me. So I am gonna try to because it's short, right? So I'm gonna power through it. But the fact that it's so short and I still can't power through it because the puzzles are so boring. It's just like you look around and you find something that looks like a thing, and then like that opens a gate, and you just do that over and over again. I'm just so sick of this. This is not interesting. The combat is okay for what it is, and I actually do like the kind of like walking sim, like roller coaster ride stuff, and the storytelling moments are actually interesting, but the puzzles are just the puzzles are so bad that I can't deal with it. And it's like Stellar Blade puzzles without any of Stellar Blade's like good combat or like interesting like enemies or enemy encounters or anything like that. It's just and like much worse puzzles than what Stellar Blade had even, So I don't know. Have you guys played Hellblade at all?
I played a little bit when it came out and thought it was kind of boring.
Right.
And then I went back to it a few years ago and finished it. I remember thinking this game has a lot of cool and interesting qualities. Like the audio, of course, is incredible.
Of course. Yeah, that was cool.
But I was like, it's cool. I don't think it's a bad game by any means, but I definitely think that it's overrated based on how people talked about it when it came out. I'm going to play when the second one comes out. I'm absolutely going to play it on PC for sure.
Yeah. But, I have to play it because it is. I mentioned that I'm probably not going to be reviewing games for a while. I will be reviewing Hellblade 2 because that is, Microsoft's like big game this year, so I should probably play that too. And plus it'll be short too. But yeah, that's why I'm playing Hellblade 1. I'm kind of struggling. It is boring. I don't know if it's overrated because I feel like not a lot of people talk about it. So, and I feel like not a lot of people are going to be talking about Hellblade 2. Review codes still aren't out yet, so I still don't have it. I haven't even touched it, and it comes out next week. So there's that. And the reason why I dropped out Hellblade 1 is because I'm playing Elden Ring again.
Ooh.
Nice. Lovely Elden Ring. It's been 2 years since I played Elden Ring. Since it came out, I played it 7 times in the opening months when it came out. And then I got really, really sick, and it turns out I had cancer, and I just didn't touch it for a while again. So it's been actually really, really nice to go back to Elden Ring healthy. I'm healthier and I'm powered up and I'm filled out, and I've been really enjoying it. And it's just so much more fun than Hellblade. Just so much more engaging than a linear walking fest. But the reason why I'm playing Elden Ring is because I'm inspired by one Twitch streamer, Kai Cenat.
I've been seeing that on Twitter.
Yeah, for some reason, he decided to do a 100-hour marathon stream of Elden Ring, just straight. So he is sleeping on camera, and it is wild to actually check in on him at like 6 a.m. in the morning, and he's still up. Fucker is still awake and laying in bed on the mattress and like just playing on his phone. But it's like, dude, go to sleep, bro. No, you're playing Elden Ring, it's crazy to watch him play Elden Ring, like do nothing but play Elden Ring and eat. And like he has camera set up in the bathroom, so like when he goes to like wash his face or like put on deodorant, like you just never keep your eyes off him. So as a Kai Cenat fan, I'm not like really a huge fan of him, but I think I am becoming a fan of him. Partially, I didn't like his content at first, and I think it's because he was fucking 17 years old. and I just couldn't like connect with like a teenager. Like he's like way too young, you know. His humor is just like a kid's, you know. Now he's 22 and he's a little bit more of a sophisticated person. He's a little bit more of an adult. And I think I can actually vibe with him a little bit now, you know. So watching him play Elden Ring has been really entertaining. And people thought that this was a Bandai Namco a collaboration. Turns out he didn't even fucking know that Shadow the Erdtree is coming out in next month. He was like, "Wait, there's DLC next month," and everyone in chat was like, we thought that's why you're doing this." It's like, no, he's just playing the game because he heard so much about it, and he decided to marathon it, and that's what he's doing. And he's actually last time I checked, he was on Moog for some reason. He keeps hitting end game bosses. He keeps getting lost, and he powers through the hardest fucking areas in the game. He went through the Lake of Rot for some reason, really early in the game. You don't need to be there, bro. Like, why are you there early? And then he hits like Estelle, the alien monster, you know, like one of the end game creatures of Elden Ring. And he's fighting him in like level 20 or level 30. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. You played Elden Ring, right, Dustin?
Oh yeah.
You beat it, right?
Yeah, I have the platinum.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So yeah, you know how hard Moog is, and like he didn't have like the thing to counter Moog's like death move. I don't know if he beat Moog at all. I don't know.
I saw him fighting the Tree Sentinel, and I saw like things that were like, oh, he's been on Tree Sentinel for 6 hours or something.
It was almost 6 hours, and he finally beat it, and the whole time chat kept telling him, "You don't need to do this. You don't need to do this. Nobody does this." Even his friends kept checking in on the room, and they were like, "Kai, you don't need to do this. You can just keep going ahead and just like find other things, and you can come back and kill him." And he was really dead set on killing the Tree Sentinel, and he did it. You know, he did it. He pulled it off. You know, that's admirable. You know,
yeah, that's dedication.
So I you know, just him talking about Elden Ring got me really excited about playing again. And it's like, yeah, Shadow the Erdtree is coming out. I never finished my PC run. My PC run was was my very first save, because that was my review copy, and I didn't finish the game in time for the review embargo. And then I just got the PS5 version, and I just finished it there. So I do have a character stuck at level 99, so I decided to go back and start that. And then I decided, oh, you know what? I just started a new character, and that's where I'm at too. And last night I tweeted that I forgot how to do the Redan Festival, which I never knew needed a trigger, because every time I played it, I just went to Redmane Castle, and Redan was ready to go. It's just like, yeah, let's fight. I just thought that's how you fight. I didn't know that there are a series of conditions that I was accidentally meeting in Elden Ring to trigger this boss fight. But you know, Elden Ring, having a hell of a time. Still a game of the year. Still, I think the best game to release in the last 5 years. So,
yeah, I think I agree with that. I need to get my character ready or figure out what I'm doing for the DLC. So I will be back in the lands between shortly. So.
Yeah, I'm debating on whether I want to continue my PS5 file, which is level 713. Because I did do the farm, and basically boosted myself up to level 17. But I only have four spell slots, so that's how little I've done like the side quests.
Yeah,
and so but that goes to show how little I give a shit about side quests in video games. Like, I don't care. But also I don't really like the magic in Elden Ring that much. It's okay, you know, but I never really thought it was that interesting. I never thought the builds were that interesting. I didn't think the spells were that cool. I like the Dragon's Dogma spells more. Speaking of Dragon's Dogma, I've fallen off that game hard. Dragon's Dogma 2. I think the game kind of sucks.
Dang! Whoa!
You know, yeah. I think parts of it kind of suck. Actually, you know, I think Dragon's Dogma 1 is like just legit better. Like as a game, it's just better. Has more interesting quests, more interesting story. Obviously, like the physical graphics and everything like that are much better in part 2, but I just fallen off Dragon's Dogma 2 like super hard. Like they'll probably do an update and I'll play it again. But right now, I'm really enjoying my time being back in the lands between. And yeah, man, it's just so good to play Elden Ring again. Like, I was super sick when Elden Ring came out. Like, that was when I was really starting to suspect that that something was really really wrong with me. So like, I was not in a good state of mind. But I am glad that I can play Elden Ring again too, because while I was sick, I can't return to games I was playing while I was sick, which is really really difficult. Even Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I played while I was sick. It's hard for me to start that game back up again. Sonic Frontiers, God of War Ragnarok, so many games I played during that stretch. It's hard for me to revisit, but Elden Ring, I think, is good enough I'm just in the lands between. I'm not thinking about any external issues or anything like that. It's just a good time. I love Elden Ring.
Yeah, it's a great game. 10 out of 10. Classic, certified classic. Micah, still chipping away at Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
I can't wait to. Yeah, where are you at?
So let me think. I have now gotten to the new country that you visit. The names are weird. Is it like Mor Ardain is the new kingdom that you go to at a certain point? And that they talk about this country the whole time. It's not a spoiler. They talk about it from the beginning of the game that this is a place you're gonna go. But so I've gotten there. I have been derailed by some side quests. This is
Mor Ardain. Yes, there you go. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the first game had metric shit ton of side quests, but they were also very simple. Like most of them were fetch quests. Most of them were go to the beach and kill 10 crabs, whatever. This game has far fewer side quests, but they are more tedious and more annoying. I kind of wish that they were simpler, only because there's a lot of them that I'm ignoring because it's I just don't feel like doing this. An example I gave Colin actually is that there's one side quest where you need to buy an item from this guy and it's $30,000. Money in this game is hard to come by. You don't get a lot of money for each battle that you do. And I do a lot of battles because my goal is I get to a new area. I want to try and beat as many enemies in the area as I can to be appropriately leveled so I have to grind later. So I'm not skimping on the exploration by any means, or I'm finding the treasure chests, but treasure chests might give you $1,000, for example. And then the items that you need for party boosts and stuff might be $1,500. So the money in the game, it's not a problem until you face these side quests where it's oh, you got to buy something that's 30 grand. I have not had that much money in the game all at once the whole time I've been playing it. I didn't write down how many hours I've played yet. I know I crossed 20 hours a couple days ago. So I have not had that much money this whole time in the game, much like real life. All right. And so it's just man, these side quests are tedious. And there are some of them that are some of them are hampered by the minimap itself, which I've mentioned some issues with before.
Oh my god, the minimap is hellish. Even the first area of Gornot or whatever, it makes no fucking sense.
No, it is awful. Yeah, and the fast travel map can sometimes help you figure out where you want to go, but very often the fast travel map also doesn't show where your objective is. It's because you can't zoom out enough, right? So you have your mini map. If you click on left stick, it goes to the big map, but you can't zoom out enough to see the entire region. Basically, your view is just limited to this radius around you. And it's sometimes I just need to see where the objective is, because the in-game objective is one of those compass things at the top of the screen, and you want to keep it centered so you know you're going the right way. But if you're in the complete wrong area, it will just lead you in circles. It will not actually lead you on a path out of the current area and into the next one.
And there's a little
path.
Doesn't work. There's a little path that shows you where to go, and it never takes you to where you need to go because it's upstairs or downstairs or something,
Right. It just does not function very well. So some of these side quests are really annoying, and some of the guides for this game, there are some good ones, but some of them will tell you the side quest doesn't say go here, and it's that's not helpful because the problem is I can't find it, right? So I'm not leveled as high as I want to be because I'm not doing as many of the side quests. I'm looking for them and I'm interacting with every single one that I come across. But then it'll turn out to be it's either a quest that needs a lot of money, which I do not have, or it's a quest that just requires, you know, it would take me like an hour just to do this little side quest and it only gives you like 150 XP. Some of these side quests are super low reward for what you're doing. And that has been a downside of this game. The first one was a little anxiety inducing because of how many side quests it had. Like you'd go to a new area and there'd be like 50 side quests on the map. And it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. But then this one is so dialed back, not just in the number of side quests, but in the style of them, that they're more difficult. They're not just little fetch quests. They're not just go to the beach and kill 20 guys. There's some of those. And I wish there were more of them. I'm still enjoying the game. The story is getting a little more exciting. The story is starting to just pick up a bit. Still very funny, you know, despite it. This game is off the walls in terms of like, you'll have a cutscene of someone literally getting shot. And then like 5 seconds later, they're making jokes. And it's not a distraction. It's just odd. This tone shift of like, they literally were like, oh my God, we just saw a flashback of somebody being murdered. And then they're like, all right, well, let's make a joke about this guy. And I like it. I definitely like it. But it's weird considering how dark the first game was at times.
The tone of the first one was really dark, and it starts out really dark and like pretty quickly.
Surprisingly so. There were moments in that first game where I was like genuinely like mouth agape. I can't believe they just showed that, partly because violence on Switch games is often implied. And in this one, the implication was still startling. The way that they did these animations, the way the characters reacted to it, it was still startling, even the implied violence. This one has those moments, but then they sort of soften the blow a bit. It's not a bad thing to me, but it is a markedly different tone from the first game. And I'm still enjoying it very much, but the contrast, I was expecting the games to be much more similar. When I started this game, I was expecting it to be much darker like the first one, so without the comic relief, basically.
Yeah, they're so different. The comic relief is so weird. It really feels like that they wanted to make this like a manga, like Dragon Ball, like goofy type of like, you know, like slice of life anime style story for a little bit, and it'll get really serious like pretty quickly towards the second half. But definitely you can kind of feel that tension of like, oh well, do we want to be like a family friendly, like, or you know, not really family friendly because it gets kind of horny too. But do we want to be like a lighthearted you know, manga slapstick type of comedy? And it kind of rides that for a little bit. So. But Xenoblade Chronicles 1 was not like that at all, and neither is 3. 2 is the only one that's like this. And 2 is the one that has Tetsuya Nomura making character designs for it.
Oh, right.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that like manga-esque quality, because it reminds me a bit of like Naruto Shippuden, of having moments that made me cry. Okay, Naruto had some moments of like, holy shit, my world is crumbling. And then it's like also genuinely funny. And that's an important part of this, is that it doesn't come off as super corny. I'm not annoyed by the jokes. Like, they are funny. I am actually laughing at a lot of these jokes, and it's not bothersome because I'm not like rolling my eyes at it.
Mia is a great character,
but it is just like, oh yeah. No, I'm loving these characters. They're very fun. Of course, they had like the hot springs scene, you know, and that got a little silly. Like, you know, you have to have a hot springs scene in every anime.
See, that's the thing. Like, I think they really, really wanted to make Xenoblade Chronicles 2 like, this is like our anime game. You know, this is our One Piece or Naruto or everything. So that's why they have all the tropes in there, including the hot springs scene. Even Dust is nodding his head like, yes, I know that. Yes, I know that trope.
I just had a hot spring scene in One Piece just in the last few weeks, so
there you go.
It's out there. It took One Piece like 940 episodes to do it, but they got there.
I mean, the whole show is essentially a beach party episode. You know what I mean? Like every anime has their beach party where everyone's in bikinis. One Piece, everybody's in bikinis a lot of the time, anyways. So now it's like we're just upping the stakes even more with a hot spring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm enjoying the game a lot. I'm excited to dig in even more, and get into that second half of it. I'll say like one other thing just to close this out. The first game, part of what made the stakes feel so high was that it was like individual characters who were in need of assistance. Basically, it was individual characters who were like in peril. In this game, it's a little more like abstract isn't the right word, but in this game, it's more about like we're trying to save the world, which is obviously important, but it's just more, I don't know, it's a more zoomed out goal type deal versus trying to save my best friend being the goal of like the first game. And in this one, it's like we're trying to save the world. It feels a little impersonal in that way. It in a weird way, trying to save the whole world, which you're also doing in the first game, but they focus so much on your interpersonal relationships that's a little bit in the back seat in the second game.
You're
and
right.
For some reason,
this one is like a lot more kingdom related, right? Kingdom related stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know why that makes the stakes feel lower, but maybe it's just because when you're trying to save like your best friend, it's like very important to you. It's heartfelt. Trying to save the world is a little more like superhero feeling. And I'm still really liking it, but that's another like key difference between these two games and just how they feel to play.
Ultimately, because you're trying to get Pyra to the world tree, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. That's the ultimate goal of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So it's a little bit more of like a, there's less of an attachment because Rex isn't like so personally invested in it. He's just a good guy,
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you already own the third one? Like, did you buy it already?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
When I was playing the first one, really enjoyed it, and then I had checked on Amazon, saw that these games were starting to just get low stock, went ahead and just ordered them both, and now it's just one of those things of like, it was a gamble of like, do I buy them now? Do I wait? I went ahead and just bought them last year because I did not want to get into a position where these games were $100 each to try and get them physical. I need my physical games. So I went ahead and got those immediately because I liked the first one enough that I was like, if I like the second one, I'm not going to wait to buy the third one. I'll just get them both.
Yeah, just get it.
The third one is so fucking good, and they fixed the side quests issue finally. The side quests are lesser and they're a lot more meaningful. They have a lot of story and they're very very rewarding. So it's really really good to do the side quest in part 3. Part 3 is so good.
For me, I wanted to kick off. I'll read. I believe this is Athatos. I don't know. He says, just wanted to say, you guys got to play Animal Well. It's one of the best Metroidvanias I've played in years. In a way, it reminds me of Tunic, in that it hands the player tools and environmental clues to solve puzzles, but respects your intelligence enough to let you figure out different ways to use items and solve puzzles on your own. Figuring everything out and finding all the secrets was a joy, even if, like Tunic, the endgame secrets can be pretty cryptic. And that's the game that I was playing, is Animal Well. And I have beaten the game where, you get to the end and you see the credits, but what I've learned about Animal Well is that, to my understanding, there's like almost as much endgame stuff as the main story, quote story, whatever, the main portion of the game. And I got to agree with Right in here that I was surprised that I'm always worried with Metroidvania games that I'm going to be too stupid to figure something out. And I almost always have to look something up because I'm like beating my head against the wall. I don't know what to do. I pretty much didn't look up anything the entire main run of the game. The only thing I looked up was there's a challenge in it that you have to do that I was pretty sure that's what I needed to do, but it was so difficult that I was like, is this what I have to do? I don't want to waste all this time and then it not work. So I looked it up and I'm like, okay, I am doing the right thing. I just need to get good. And so I did eventually do that. But yeah, this game's awesome. I absolutely love the style of this game, the feeling, the vibe, whatever you want to say, is so unique in that it's called Animal Well. There's all of these animals around. Some of them are so cute, just hanging out. Like you see this duck, you walk by him, he quacks. Big fan of him. Then there's other parts where there's like a giant ostrich that's trying to kill you and he makes scary sounds. It's this weird mix of being cute and really creepy at the same time. And it's filled with all these secrets. You got to find all these eggs in the game, and some of them are insanely cryptic. And it's just what I really liked about it. Of course, being a Metroidvania, it has different items that you unlock that allow you to access different areas. But these items are so unassuming. You unlock a bubble gun, a frisbee, a yo-yo, things like that. Like just very common.
Firecrackers is your first weapon. That's what I got. So I did play Animal Well for a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah. This game, but yeah, I absolutely loved it. In fact, I was worried that I was too stupid for the end game, because the end game definitely does make things a lot more cryptic. So at one point I was like, yeah, I think I did found some more eggs. There's some other stuff to unlock. I did some of that and I'm like, I think I'm done. And then yesterday I was like, you know what? I want to play more Animal. I'm going to do it. Something's calling me back to it, despite definitely feeling a little lost in some ways. So I have begun starting to look up a few things. And every time I've done it, I've thought, okay, I'm glad I looked that up, because I would have never figured that out. But in terms of its main core game, definitely go in knowing as little as possible in terms of like secrets and stuff like that, and just enjoy it. Try not to look anything up, because I didn't feel like anything was too tough. Not that it's not a tough game. Mechanically, this game does, I think, get pretty hard in terms of its like platforming and some of the different puzzles, but I really recommend it. It was totally awesome. And I think this is out on Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, whatever. Wherever you want to play it, check it out. It's a good game.
I did check it out on Steam. It's for the record, I just want to make it clear that I always believed in Donkey. From the very jump. There are so many people that were dunking on Donkey. They're like, oh my god, he's a YouTuber and he thinks that he can tell what good games are. Yes, it turns out he does. And he always had that instinct, yeah, I don't know. I have no idea why people were so against it when there are so many fucking journalists jumping into game studios,
Right.
And here's Donkey like putting his wealth behind the game,
Yeah,
and he was always smart. He does know what I think he's a much better game critic than pretty much all of us, like in general, definitely better than any reviewer on any site, including myself,
Yeah, there was that weird video on NoClip that Daniel Dwyer did. Basically, I don't think he poses the question about the ethics of Donkey releasing a game. I'm like, what are you talking about?
What ethics are we talking about? Yeah,
Yeah, like he's always up. It's not like he's publishing this game secretly and then giving it an amazing review and not telling anybody that he published it. It just doesn't make any sense. And he was always funny about it. Like, dude, it's so funny you mentioned it, but he basically said when they announced Big Mode, he's like, I'm going to only publish good games. And all these people made fun of him, like, oh, he's going to learn the hard way. It's not so easy to just publish good games. And maybe he will get a bad game at some point that he publishes. Maybe. That's certainly possible. It's likely. Yeah. But it's so funny that this first game is one of the best reviewed. It was like over 90, I think, initially on OpenCritic when it came out, or maybe it was Metacritic, whatever. Yeah. But so yeah, good first start for Big Mode, and just very impressed. I'm trying to remember the Animal Well developer. It's just one guy,
Billy Basso.
Billy Basso, is that his name?
Yeah, I guess it's pronounced Basso, but yeah.
Isn't that the singing fish up on the wall? From the you can buy it on TV. I'm killing that. That's like
Billy Bass.
Like Billy Bass.
Billy Bass. Yeah. Yeah. He insanely talented making this game by himself.
It is Billy Bass. Big mouth Billy Bass. Yeah, you're right. Oh my god.
Wow, so he went from singing songs on a wall to programming games. Now that's a glow up.
Making successful indie games. Yeah,
Yeah, good for him.
But yeah, it turns out that Donkey it has good taste. I don't know why anyone questioned his ability to know what a good game is. I think he is keener about it than most people have. Yeah, and yes, he does have a JRPG anti JRPG bias. He thinks a lot of JRPGs are pretty goofy. So you just understand that, and every time he thinks a JRPG is goofy, then just understand that it probably means I would probably think it's charming or interesting.
Yeah. He and the funny thing is when he is critical of JRPGs, I'm usually like, yeah, he's right about that. Or that is weird. That's something we just
yes, that pizza line that Cloud said when Jesse was dying was kind of stupid. Yes. You don't have to be like, oh my god, FF7 remake, everything about that game is perfect. Like, no, it has some fucking stupid lines too, you know?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and end off with 2 listener questions before we say goodbye. Mars Barrow says, "Hi, Punch Muffins. I'm just curious as to what all your origin stories are when it comes to gaming. For example, when I was 9, I wanted a scooter, so I saved up $30. A friend of mine then told me I only needed $70 more to buy my own NES. So of course I did that because I knew how fun Nintendo games were already, and I haven't looked back since. Stay cool out there, Turtle Bashers. Mars from MN." So, Micah, how did you get started gaming?
Oh, yeah. First, I have a joke about Minnesota. This is just one of what does Mississippi sip? Mississippi sips mini sodas.
Oh.
All right. I had to throw that out there. All right. Because we got, Mars from Minnesota here.
Gene didn't even give you the pleasure of a fake laugh on that one.
There's no like upturned like corners of the mouth or anything like that. No, nothing.
No, I don't deserve my state jokes are terrible. Gene, what did Della wear?
What?
Della wore her New Jersey.
Oh my god, this is what Joel felt like when he was hanging out with Ellie the whole time, right?
Yeah, a look of like visible disgust. No, okay. The question at hand, getting into gaming. A lot of this was my. Well, because he's from Minnesota, and I never get to tell my Minnesota joke. Colin hates my state jokes so much. Between the state jokes and like my Bible one-liners, he hates them so much. It is much like Joel and Ellie with her joke book.
Colin,
getting into gaming. So my sister and I played a lot of computer games when we were kids. Like Nickelodeon.com, Disney.com all had those like games based on the shows that you'd watch essentially. Of course, having some like PC games as well, like the Rugrats adventure game, Toy Story, game collection for PC. We loved those. My mom had a lapse in judgment and bought us Road Rash, not understanding ratings.
That's great. That's amazing. Road Rash.
Yeah, we got our dad into it, and so like computer games where it started, and also things, kid games at friends' houses, Putt Putt and Fatty Bear. All right,
oh
games
hell
like
yeah!
That.
No one knows what I'm talking about on Sacred when I bring up Putt Putt. I got blank stares about Putt Putt. Putt Putt is a fucking OG. He deserves respect, and no one knows who he is. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
No, Putt Putt, exceptional game. We didn't have like Pajama Sam, for example. Like I was aware of what those were, but like my friends didn't own those, but they did have Putt Putt. And then getting into like a friend having a PlayStation, a different friend having an N64, like and being able to play those at their houses periodically. That's what got me really interested in gaming. It still wasn't something we could really afford until Toys R Us had a sale on the Game Boy Advance SP. My mom bought me one on sale, a couple of games out of the clearance bin. That, love of gaming, even though I couldn't really game very much, still remained. And then in high school, making friends with the IT kids. I was in the machine shop, made friends with the kids in the IT shop, and we ended up, they got me more into gaming and telling me all these things that are out. And, they're talking about, they went to PAX LA Noire, and I'm like, what? Like detective games? And I'm still just like in the Stone Age gaming wise. And so just getting into it a little bit later, I've certainly missed out on a lot, but getting in on like the 360 essentially. And from then on, being a huge fan, and that's my main hobby. But yeah, getting in as a kid, playing computer games, and my mom buying questionable games for us when she'd see them at Walmart, that was what got us started.
Nice. Gene, what about you?
I think I talked about it, but it's Karateka, the first game I ever played. Me playing a video game is one of my very first memories. It's definitely like the top 3 earliest memories. I was 5 years old. I went to my friend Gabe's house in Guam, and he had an Apple II, and he was playing Karateka, and I was like, "What is this thing that you're showing me?" And he was like, "It's a game. Try kicking the guy." And I was like, "Awesome." Kicked him, punched him. I was animated beautifully. If you know anything about Karateka, it's basically the early day Prince of Persia, Uncharted, Eco Shadow of the Colossus type game, and also a fighting game too. It was a game that inspired like Mortal Kombat, for example. So yeah, I just played that game, and I was just like, I need to play more of these things, and that's how it started. And then my grandmother, God bless her heart, rest in peace. She came from Japan one day, and she had a Famicom and a whole bunch of games. And then we later learned that Famicom couldn't play American games, so that's why we eventually got a Nintendo. But I did have a family computer, and that's again my proximity to Japan. I had a lot of luck in finding import games. But yeah, that's pretty much how I got my start.
For me, the first console I played was Sega Genesis. There's a photo of me, probably 2 or 3 years old. You could tell I'm in a diaper playing Sonic, as many Sonic fans still do to this day, regardless of age. Luckily, Sonic had not tainted me, and actually learned pretty early what a bad game was through playing Sonic. But no, we did like Sonic 1 and 2 quite a bit. But yeah, also playing on computer. Mikey brought up The Legend, Putt Putt. Big fan, Putt Putt, Freddy Fish, Spy Fox, all of these. Played these a ton. And and I mentioned on this show Howie Mandel's Toonland during that era as well. Eventually got an NES because my parents were very poor, and that was the cheap console. They probably, like, now thinking back to that NES, that was probably like a $600 plus gift in today's like how much those games are worth now, and the console and stuff like that. So but yeah, dude, I remember getting a PlayStation was legendary. That was like, I had Rayman.
Toonland is a music thing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's like a music children's game on a farm.
Voiced by follows the character Little Howie, voiced
Little
by
Howie.
Television personality Howie Mandel. That's funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude.
I knew somebody who's I think I already talked about this, but I knew somebody who was a model on Deal or No Deal.
Oh yeah.
And she was always talking about, yeah, Howie's doing this and Howie's doing that. I'm like, stop talking about Howie like I know him, like I don't know who Howie Mandel is. I don't care who he is.
Yeah. Okay, I want to make sure. I know, Gene, you've got a heart out, but I like this last question, so we can do this one and then get the hell out of here. From Derek Beek, who says, "Hey, Goonaside Squad." Damn, that's a new one. Do you think your consumption of media and art outside of video games help you to have a better understanding of the video game medium? I often feel this way with movies, since I watch a lot of movies, and I notice just how much weaker most game narratives are to even average movies. If I didn't have as many movies as I do, I would have a less holistic view of video games as an art form, and would accept the subpar storytelling because I lacked context for what a good story can be. This is just one example, but I believe artists can improve their craft by not only studying their one specific niche, but instead getting at least a minor grasp on how others are done. And I gotta say, I totally agree with this. You mentioned movies, Derek, and this is something I wish I did more, because when I do, I feel like it's so important, but books. The reality is smart people read books, like just across the board. And it doesn't even matter if it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever. Reading is one of those things that just helps you immensely understand stories, understand dialogue, understand how grammar and writing works. So I would say, like, dude, reading, again, that's something that's like, dude, I read like maybe 2 books a year now at most, sometimes 3 if I'm lucky.
That's more than me. That's more than me, man. And
every time, like, I need to do this more. But Micah, I know you mentioned a few weeks ago about like staying up all night reading, right? You're a big reader. Am I remembering correctly?
Oh yeah. Yeah. When I get invested in a book, I get totally engrossed in it. My goal right now is to read some classics that I missed out on. Not going to a traditional high school, the academics were at times abbreviated. The quality of the education was there. I don't want people to think I'm like some idiot. Okay. But it was, some of the things were abbreviated in that, like, our, high school English classes, you get to Shakespeare, and we went through a couple of his plays, but like, we didn't go through much other classic literature. We didn't have to read Moby Dick or there's a lot of things I missed out on. And being someone who likes to write my own little stories and also just trying to have a little less screen time in that regard, I'm trying to go back and read some of these classics. Like right now I'm reading Pride and Prejudice for the first time ever. I'm surprised at how funny it is, because it's from the 1800s, it's just like a very different sense of humor and some of the things they find funny, but it still resonates. So yeah, books were what came to mind when I was reading this question of just trying. There's obviously so many genres and different things to read of varying quality themselves, and it all sort of plays back around. What I noticed the most is when video games have very predictable stories, for example, and like you can see what's going to happen 10 miles away. I am pleasantly surprised when that is not the case. And that's where I compare it to books, for example, that have like a lot of twists and turns. And like, I really wasn't expecting that to happen. But something like, for example, Persona 4, which I will not spoil, but I figured out who like the bad guy was very early on. And I remember thinking, I have to be wrong because I'm not very smart. I just kept telling myself like, nah, I can't be right because I'm not very bright. And I was. And it was one of those things that it's like, well, the story it's just kind of
really
like
you
lays itself
figured out
there.
that guy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was just like, this is obvious. It was too obvious. And I attribute some of that to reading books, especially horror novels that have a lot of twists and turns generally, and like you don't know what's going to happen next. When a book truly surprises me and I can't figure out the ending ahead of time, that it sets a standard for other media, TV, video games as well, of like, if I can't figure out what's going to happen at the end, then this was a good story, and that's kind of, when it comes to video games, a lot of times it is very predictable. You can see where it's going so quickly. But when a game truly surprises me and I'm like, wow, I didn't see that coming, it definitely holds up more in my mind of like, this game is comparable to some of the great books I've read, some of the great movies I've seen.
Gene, what do you think about this?
Yeah, well, first of all, I agree with you, Derek, that most video game stories aren't that good, which is why, like, you barely hear me complaining about video game stories, or why I don't really rate them that high, or I don't consider them that important to the experience, because I think most of them is kind of garbage, actually, and that's fine. I think there's also good garbage and there's bad garbage too, right? And a lot of my favorite video games are good garbage. But it's important to remember that a lot of these stories aren't that original. Like Uncharted, for example, just watch an Indiana Jones movie. That's exactly what it comes from, even The Last of Us is so inspired by movies or books even too, obviously Cormac McCarthy books. So you really just see the origin points of so many different things, even Nier Automata and Evangelion, Yoko Taro would just tell you, just watch Evangelion. It's much better, and he's right. It is much better, But then Nier does his own thing in the space of video games, and that's why it's beautiful too. But yeah. I mean, like, even watching Evangelion would give you the context to appreciate Nier more, and to appreciate what you like about Nier, and it'll also help you understand Nier a lot more too, Reading books helps with the way I analyze certain games. It's a reason why, like, I'm one of the few people who don't need Vati video for Dark Souls or Elden Ring storyline breakdowns, because I can just see them just fine just by playing the game. Because I'm very well trained in reading like classic literature, very postmodern stuff and very stream of consciousness stuff. stuff like William Burroughs and James Joyce and all that stuff, Kafka. And so I enjoy reading all those books and finding like pulling themes, and that's why it's pretty easy for me to do it in games, which is why I can do it for a game like Starfield and say, oh, Starfield's New Game Plus isn't meant to be cool. Actually, it's actually meant to be the part of the themes of like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you even playing this game, kind of thing, and it's what I always want to try to interview. When I try to interview creators, I ask them what else inspires them, and because a lot of times they don't really want to talk about games anyways, because a lot of them are a little defensive of what they're copying, right? But they might be a little bit more loose in talking about other extrinsic artistic things that might inspire them, and then music too. The way I analyze music has definitely changed the way I look at games too. Again, everything I write about games is really just training from everything I've learned from movie criticism and music criticism. And the reason why my game reviews write the way they do is because I come from that era. I'm not trying to copy like GamePro or IGN or GameFan or anything like that. I don't want to write like a video game reviewer. I want to write like an arts reviewer. So that's why when I do write my reviews, or when I do read when I try to find inspiration from reviews, I do not look at video game reviews at all. Period. I don't do that. I look at movie reviews. I look at tech reviews. I look at car reviews. I think car reviews are very revelatory. I read sports writing. Because sports writing has some of the best writing around. Because how many fucking times can you say the ball went into the basket? You have to be a really, really talented person to make something that routine interesting every single time you write. So that's what I do. I just try to read a lot. So I don't read a lot of books, but I definitely read a ton. I do want to read more books for sure, because I used to be such a huge reader, and that just fell off ever since I became a journalist. Because I just have to fucking read articles all the time, and I'm pretty sure that's done like a lot of good brain damage to me. So
yeah, I understand that. You mentioned James Joyce. James Joyce tainted, because did you ever see how his like private letters got published and all of his fetishes came out?
Sure, yeah, I believe it, but yeah, I mean, his fucking writing is perverted as hell too,
Yeah,
and an entire chapter of Ulysses, long considered the greatest piece of art in 20th century, has a whole chapter of a guy jerking off, looking at a girl tanning,
Oh, well, that's pretty mild compared to these. I mean, especially for time period. I'm not saying it's mild, but some of these, I'll just let the audience look that up.
but there's a whole chapter about gooning.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
he's a goon master.
100 years before Stellar Blade.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap it up here. Nice, long, girthy episode of Punching Up for you here today. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. This has been fun. So let's go around, say goodbye. Micah, goodbye.
Goodbye. I was worried for a second that like the feed cut out, because I was like, oh no, like right at the end of the show, I've lost him.
Keep you on your toes,
No, another fantastic episode, if I do say so myself. I guess I gotta go read Ulysses now. It sounded boring, but I guess now it sounds like a little bit better of a book. So maybe we'll add that to the list of classic literature that I'll try and get my way through.
It's actually a little boring. It's mostly nonsense.
His writing is whack, dude. I've tried reading it, and I'm like, I'm too dumb for this. I can't.
Yeah. It's really, really like it's pretty impenetrable, pretty much.
Which one did I try to read?
Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man, probably. Yeah, that one. That one's also really, really difficult to read too.
Yeah, not my style.
Yeah, Gene. It's the Dark Souls of books, basically.
Oh, never mind. It's off the list then.
That's probably the best way I could describe it. It really is the Dark Souls of books of classic literature.
Yeah. Gene, thanks for hanging out today. And you got an interview after this.
Yeah.
Have a good one, dude.
I think it's fascinating because this is it's the first and that's the angle of my piece. BBL Drizzy is the first piece of AI art that everyone likes.
Yeah.
Like even you were like that was AI art. I was like, yeah, that was AI generated, you know. And you don't question it. You just saying BB. You don't care where it comes from. It wasn't from a human at all, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But dude, it's wild to see. It's being played at weddings. It's at the cycle classes now. It's infiltrated the Peloton community. You know,
I was watching all of those ChatGPT videos they put out yesterday. Their new voice model and stuff, and I'm like, dude, people are gonna fall in love with this thing. I'm telling you right now, it's not science fiction. Like the movie Her is going to happen, without a doubt. It's over. We're done.
I mean, look, you just had on Sacred Symbols a guy talking about, you know, what if Eve comes to my house and she, you know, I don't want Eve to hook up with Adam because on the off chance that I get teleported into this parallel world where the isekai into the world, the video game world where Eve, characters like Eve or Asuka or whatever exist, then yeah, they're for me, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm not making fun of you, man. Like you were still within the boundaries of normal thinking, but you were pushing it there for sure. I think. I think you're pushing it if you're waiting for the day that Eve is going to come to your doorstep. But at the same time, though, like it's not a long jump from that mentality to I love my ChatGPT girlfriend.
Yeah. Hey, at least someone will listen, even if she's not real. That's all that matters.
You know what? I used to be so depressed. I used to call 411. You know how I used to call 411 for the time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I used to do that just to hear a voice.
Damn.
Anyways, on that note.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out. We appreciate you as always. Check us out on Patreon. We appreciate it. Or just leave a comment, whatever. Let us know how we're doing. We appreciate it. We'll be back next time for more Punching Up. Until then, goodbye. Punching Up, a Nintendo podcast, is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is written and produced by me, Dustin Furman. My co-hosts are Gene Park, Dagan Moriarty, and Micah Watson. The show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. Punching Up, along with the rest of Last Stand Media shows, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your kind contributions and generosity to our independent endeavor. Thank you.